Archaeologists found a door sealed for 5,000 years, but what was inside left them speechless. For hundreds of years, archaeology has helped humanity uncover countless secrets of the ancient world, from cities buried deep beneath the earth, shipwrecks resting on the ocean floor, to ancient tombs filled with mysterious artifacts, strange doors discovered far beneath the Great Pyramid, and even dark underground passageways. Every discovery has revealed another piece of the history of human civilization. However, not every excavation brings clear answers. Some skeletons have been discovered in bizarre positions that scientists still cannot fully explain to this day. Some ancient artifacts display craftsmanship far beyond the era in which they were created. And there are also mass burial sites that have forced archaeologists to ask difficult questions about war, disease, and mysterious ancient rituals. From the 5,000-year-old couple discovered in Kazakhstan, to the two skeletons found holding hands in London, England, to the 2,100-year-old human skeleton discovered at the bottom of the sea in Greece in 2016, all of them are discoveries that shocked the world of archaeology. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ancient History, the channel that uncovers the terrifying mysteries of the past. In today's video, we are going to explore some of the most mysterious and horrifying archaeological discoveries ever found around the world. Ancient secrets that continue to challenge modern human understanding even today. Are you ready to explore these mysteries with me? If you are, then let's begin with our very first discovery right now. The strange door discovered inside the pyramid. Did you know that even though our planet may seem small, it contains countless fascinating places? Some are incredibly mysterious, places where, the moment people set foot there, they feel as if they are standing before something far beyond the history of humanity itself. And the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt is exactly one of those places. For more than 4,500 years, standing in the harsh desert of the Giza Plateau in Egypt, this colossal structure has continued to leave the entire world puzzled because of the countless mysteries that still cannot be explained. Of course, the most terrifying thing is not its enormous size, but the feeling that there is still something hidden inside the pyramid that humanity has never fully discovered. It is believed that the Great Pyramid was built during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu of Egypt's 4th dynasty. It is also the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world that still survives almost completely intact today. However, the more scientists study it, the more they realize that this structure appears to be far more complex than anyone ever imagined. Inside the pyramid, 3 main chambers are currently known to exist. One of them lies deep underground, carved directly into the bedrock beneath this massive structure. And it was this very place that sparked a story that shocked the global archaeology community. During a special expedition inside the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, author and researcher Ben van Kerkwijk was granted private filming access inside the ancient monument for 2 full hours. At first, that may not sound unusual, but what caught people's attention was that while the rest of the group headed toward the famous Grand Gallery, Ben decided to separate from them and descend into the deep passageway leading to the mysterious chamber beneath the pyramid. Can you imagine what it feels like to walk alone deep underground inside an ancient structure more than 4,500 years old, surrounded by complete darkness and absolute silence, with nothing but cold stone walls around you? It was a feeling of unease and fear, and the deeper he went, the stronger that feeling became. According to Ben van Kerkwijk, the path leading downward was blocked by 3 enormous granite stones positioned directly across the passageway. From that point, the underground chamber lies about 256 feet beneath the surface. It no longer felt like an ordinary room, but more like an area deliberately hidden from the outside world. Then, upon entering the underground chamber, Ben discovered that the area was still filled with research equipment from the Scan Pyramids project, the famous scientific program that shocked the world in 2017 when it discovered mysterious voids inside the Great Pyramid using cosmic ray scanning technology. Special detectors had been placed deep underground to search for previously unknown empty spaces hidden within the pyramid's structure. This suggests that even modern scientists believe there are still secrets inside this monument waiting to be uncovered. But the thing that truly stunned Ben was located at the deepest part of the underground chamber. In near total darkness, where the light could barely reach, he noticed an incredibly strange detail. Hidden deep within the stone wall was a small door leading to a narrow and mysterious passageway that very few people had ever mentioned before. Just hearing about it is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? For thousands of years, the Great Pyramid of Giza has been considered humanity's greatest mysterious labyrinth. And now, beneath the base of this ancient structure, another strange doorway has appeared. One leading somewhere nobody truly knows. Could it be another secret chamber? An ancient tunnel system? Or something the ancient Egyptians intentionally concealed for thousands of years? What makes this even more astonishing is that, to this day, many areas inside the Great Pyramid still remain inaccessible. Modern technology can scan through stone using cosmic rays, yet scientists still have not fully decoded the structure's incredibly complex interior. And that is perhaps their greatest frustration. That is exactly why researchers say that the more they explore, the more they realize that humanity's understanding of the Giza Pyramid may only be the tip of the iceberg. Because hidden behind that strange little door may be a secret powerful enough to completely change everything we thought we knew about ancient Egyptian civilization. A 3,000-year-old buried city in Uzbekistan. The secret of a lost empire has just been revealed. Amid the dry, dusty lands of Uzbekistan, archaeologists recently dug beneath the earth and unexpectedly uncovered something that had been almost completely forgotten by history for thousands of years. At first, the site looked like nothing more than an ordinary mound of dirt sitting silently in the Surkhandarya region of Uzbekistan. No one imagined that beneath that layer of soil lay the remains of a massive ancient city that had existed more than 3,000 years ago. But the unimaginable turned out to be real. They discovered an enormous ancient city, and this city was not just a few ruined walls left behind. Its layout has remained almost completely intact, from its defensive walls, storage facilities, and residential structures to traces of the daily lives of ancient people. Archaeologists said the feeling was as if an entire civilization had been frozen in time beneath the earth for thousands of years, waiting for the day it would finally be discovered. The archaeological site, known as Bandihan No. 2, is located in the Surkhandarya region in southern Uzbekistan. The site was excavated by an interdisciplinary archaeological team that included members from the Institute of Cultural Heritage at Northwest University in China, along with several other research organizations. During the excavation of the eastern section of the site, archaeologists confirmed that the oldest layer beneath the ground belonged to an early Iron Age city dating from the 10th century BC and continuing to be used until the 8th century BC. In other words, more than 3,000 years ago, while much of the world was still made up of small primitive communities, a highly organized city-state already existed in what is now Uzbekistan, complete with an advanced urban construction system. This is now considered the largest and best-preserved city ruin ever discovered in the Bandihan Oasis. And the deeper the team dug, the more astonishing details they uncovered. They found the eastern city wall still remarkably well preserved. Even the foundation of the wall had remained almost untouched. Ancient builders first leveled the ground surface, then covered it with a layer of pure less soil before constructing the walls using a plastering technique. It may sound simple, but the method reveals an extremely sophisticated level of organization more than 3 millennia ago. The site contained more than just city walls. Inside the complex, archaeologists also uncovered a large storage facility built directly alongside a system of rooms within the wall structure itself. According to Zhu Jiangsong, a member of the interdisciplinary archaeological team and a lecturer at the School of Cultural Heritage at Northwest University in China, the eastern wall was divided into multiple rows of rooms by zigzag-shaped earthen partitions. 5 rooms have already been excavated, all aligned along a northwest to southeast axis. But the most mysterious discoveries were found inside those ancient rooms. Archaeologists discovered extensive traces of fire still preserved on the floors and walls. In one room, they even found the remains of an ancient earthen bed. Beside it was a small lamp niche built directly into the center of the northern wall. The niche had a flat base and an arched top, resembling a place once used to provide light during the dark nights thousands of years ago. What makes it even stranger is that the inner wall surrounding the niche had been hardened by heat into a reddish clay color, while black soot marks still remained clearly visible across the surface after all this time. Just looking at that scene is enough to imagine the ancient people who once lived there, cooking, resting, carrying out their daily routines, and lighting their rooms with small flames in the middle of a barren land more than 3,000 years ago. In addition to the architectural structures, Bandihan No. 2 also yielded a large number of ancient artifacts. Most were pottery items such as folded rim jars, flat-bottomed bowls, and plates. Archaeologists also discovered numerous stone tools used for grain processing, including grinding stones, pestles, and mortars. Several bronze artifacts, including knives and arrowheads, were also found, along with ancient seashells. Based on radiocarbon dating results, the archaeological team confirmed that the city was first established around the 10th century BC and remained inhabited until the 8th century BC. This city-state was once an extremely important part of the ancient kingdom of Bactria, a civilization that emerged after the Bronze Age cultures of the Sirhan River Basin declined and before the rise of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. And perhaps the most unsettling part is this. For thousands of years, this enormous city lay silently buried underground while almost no one even knew it existed. That possibility has led experts to suspect that even now, beneath the deserts and arid plains of Central Asia, countless other ancient cities may still be sleeping in darkness, waiting for humanity to accidentally awaken them once again. What about you? Do you think that could be true? Or do you have a different theory? If so, leave a comment below and let everyone know your thoughts. More than 100 mysteriously aligned, 72-million-year-old dinosaur eggs discovered in France. An area that once seemed peaceful has suddenly become the center of attention for paleontologists around the world after a massive collection of fossilized dinosaur eggs was unearthed from beneath the ground. What is truly astonishing is not just the number of eggs. What shocked scientists even more was the way these eggs had remained buried underground for nearly 72 million years. This remarkable discovery was announced by the Maze Dinosaur Museum in the Hérault region of southern France. During an excavation that began in October 2025 across an area of roughly 15 acres within a protected paleontological reserve, researchers uncovered around 100 fossilized dinosaur eggs. And that number could grow even larger if the excavation continues to expand. And you know something? After decades of research, most dinosaur nesting sites discovered around the world usually contain only a handful of eggs, perhaps around 10 at most within a single area. But this time, beneath the soil of southern France, hundreds of enormous eggs appeared together, stretching across the ground in long rows. Isn't that the kind of sight even veteran scientists have almost never witnessed before? According to geologist and paleontologist Alain Cabot, the owner of the Maze Dinosaur Museum, this is one of the most extraordinary discoveries he has seen in more than 30 years of researching and excavating dinosaur fossils. He explained that the eggs were not scattered randomly, but arranged in clearly defined lines. And this pattern is believed to have never been documented before at any known dinosaur fossil site. That detail alone is enough to send chills down your spine, because if these eggs were truly arranged in an organized pattern, it could suggest that the reproductive behavior of ancient dinosaurs was far more complex than scientists previously believed. The eggs discovered in Maze are almost perfectly round and roughly the size of a large throwing ball. Based on their shape and fossil structure, researchers believe they may have belonged to sauropods, gigantic plant-eating dinosaurs that once dominated Earth during the late Cretaceous period. These dinosaurs could grow up to about 50 feet long and weigh nearly 20 tons. Just imagining those enormous creatures gathering in ancient wetlands to lay their eggs creates a scene straight out of a cinematic blockbuster. But what may be even more fascinating is the land where these eggs were found. Scientists believe that between 75 and 65 million years ago, what is now southern France had a hot, humid tropical climate similar to parts of modern Central Africa. At that time, the region was not part of a large continuous landmass like it is today. Instead, it belonged to an ancient geographic region known as the Franco-Iberian Island. This area consisted of vast delta plains mixed with countless small islands and wetlands. That environment became the perfect breeding ground for dinosaurs. Researchers believe giant sauropod herds may have returned to this region repeatedly to lay eggs, much like certain modern animals instinctively return to the same breeding grounds generation after generation. That would explain why such a massive number of eggs were found. For millions of years, this place may have served as a gigantic dinosaur nesting ground, hidden from humanity until now, when it was finally uncovered by accident. According to Alain Cabot, The discovery in Maize could rival some of the world's most famous dinosaur egg fossil sites, including those in Argentina, the Gobi Desert in China, the United States, and Spain. And if future excavations uncover even more nests beneath the ground, southern France could become one of the most important dinosaur research locations on Earth. But perhaps the most thought-provoking part is this. For 72 million years, all of these eggs lay silently underground without anyone knowing they existed. While modern humans walked above them every single day, beneath the soil remained the traces of a world that vanished long before humanity ever appeared. And honestly, that is incredibly difficult to comprehend. Tomb buried beneath a lake in China reveals a shocking 2,500-year-old secret. An ancient tomb from thousands of years ago was discovered because someone simply went fishing? Would you believe that if I told you? If not, then let's travel to the Danjiangkou Reservoir in Henan Province, central China. That day, the lake was as peaceful as ever. The water was calm, a gentle breeze moved across the surface, and two fishermen named Li Ergin and Zhang Dazhu were busy with their usual work. But just a few minutes after casting their net into the water, both men realized something felt very strange. The fishing net suddenly became stuck at the bottom of the lake. Li Ergin pulled with all his strength, but the net barely moved. His face turned red from straining against the heavy resistance. Seeing this, Zhang Dazhu rushed over to help. The two men tightened their grip on the ropes and desperately tried to drag the heavy object up from beneath the water. But suddenly the rope slipped violently, sending both of them crashing backward onto the sandy shore with a loud thud. Right after the fall, the surface of the water began to churn. Several moss-covered green bricks unexpectedly rose from beneath the lake. Moments later, part of the muddy bank near the water collapsed, revealing a dark hole about 1.5 feet wide. A cold gust of air mixed with the smell of damp, ancient soil drifted upward from below, leaving both men frozen in shock. Li Ergin panicked so badly that he thought they had accidentally opened the lair of something terrifying hidden underground. While neither of them dared to move closer, Zhang Dazhu bent down, picked up a rock, and tossed it into the hole to test its depth. Just a few seconds later, a strange, heavy sound echoed up from below, making the atmosphere even more unsettling. But what caught Zhang Dazhu's attention most were the green bricks surrounding the opening. He realized the mortar binding the bricks together did not resemble modern construction at all. It was made from a mixture of ash and sticky rice paste, an ancient building technique that had been used in Chinese structures thousands of years ago. Immediately, Zhang Dazhu stopped Li Ergin from poking the hole with a bamboo pole. He said this could be something left behind by their ancestors and needed to be reported to the authorities right away. The two fishermen decided to stop fishing immediately. Li Ergin ran back to the village to call for help, while Zhang Dazhu stayed behind to guard the area, afraid someone might damage the site. Not long afterward, the village secretary and staff from the local cultural center arrived at the scene. When they saw the ancient green bricks, they initially believed the site was merely the remains of a Song dynasty kiln or an old drainage system. The two fishermen were even rewarded and given letters of commendation for reporting the unusual discovery. But everything began to change once news of the site spread across the region. Villagers from surrounding areas flooded in to see the mysterious hole for themselves. Among them were people with darker intentions, who secretly began digging around the site in hopes of finding ancient artifacts to sell. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, local authorities immediately reported the case to Henan Province's Cultural Heritage Department. Archaeological experts drove through the night to reach the site, and after conducting a detailed survey, they discovered that the original assumption had been completely wrong. What lay beneath the Danjiangkou Reservoir was not an ancient kiln or drainage system at all, but an enormous tomb complex, more than 2,500 years old, dating back to the middle period of China's spring and autumn era. The burial complex contained a total of 24 tombs of various sizes, along with several pits used for burying ancient chariots. However, the entire site was surrounded by water, making excavation extremely difficult. Archaeologists were forced to wait until the dry season before they could officially begin their research. But at that exact moment, tomb robbers secretly made their move. After hearing about the ancient burial site, they deliberately released water into the excavation area in an attempt to destroy the site and steal artifacts for sale on the black market. Several tombs were damaged before security forces managed to stop them. Furious over what had happened, local villagers began taking turns guarding the tomb complex day and night. County officials also assigned security personnel around the clock to protect the most important parts of the site. When the dry season finally arrived, the archaeological team immediately launched an emergency excavation because the rainy season was approaching once again. They worked from early morning until late at night while constantly monitoring the water levels surrounding the tomb complex. And then, the very first tomb they opened left everyone stunned. Inside were approximately 450 precious artifacts, including an exquisitely crafted square vessel with dragon-shaped handles and a beautifully made bronze rice bowl. After studying the ancient inscriptions carved onto the artifacts, experts from the Henan Provincial Cultural Relics Bureau confirmed that this was the tomb of Zi Jiadu, a high-ranking official of the ancient state of Chu during the spring and autumn period, along with members of his family. Zi Jiadu had served under 2 kings of Chu during the height of ancient Chu civilization. This discovery filled a major historical gap regarding Chu culture north of the Yangtze River and became the oldest known archaeological site of the state of Chu ever discovered in the Yangtze River region of China. And just think about it. From a single pull of a fishing net in the middle of a lake, 2 ordinary fishermen accidentally awakened an entire world that had been buried underground for more than 2,500 years. Isn't that incredible? The mysterious treasure inside a 2,000-year-old tomb in China that shocked the entire world. You know, there are treasures buried deep beneath the earth for thousands of years without anyone even knowing they exist. And sometimes, all it takes is an accidental explosion at a construction site to open the door to an ancient world that has been asleep for more than 2,000 years. And yes, that strange story happened in Manchang, located in Hebei Province, China. At the time, a military unit had been assigned to build an underground shelter system in the mountainous area. No one could have imagined that what seemed like an ordinary construction project would lead to one of the most important archaeological discoveries in modern Chinese history. During the construction process, soldiers used explosives to blast through rock and clear the site. But immediately after the loud explosion echoed through the mountains, the ground suddenly collapsed, creating a massive crater. What caught everyone's attention was that beneath the freshly fallen rock and soil, another hollow space appeared. One that clearly showed signs of having been created by humans long ago. At first, many believed it was merely an old tunnel or an ancient water storage pit. But when they moved closer, they realized the structure inside was completely unusual. Because of this, the soldiers immediately reported the discovery to the local cultural relics preservation authorities. Not long afterward, a team of archaeologists quickly arrived to investigate the site. And after an initial examination, the experts reached a conclusion that stunned everyone. What lay hidden beneath the mountain in Manchang was not an ordinary structure, but a massive Western Han Dynasty tomb more than 2,000 years old. The military construction project was immediately forced to adjust its schedule to make way for the excavation. The experts understood that they were standing before an incredibly rare opportunity. Most Han Dynasty tombs discovered in the past had already been looted by grave robbers hundreds of years ago. But this tomb was different. As the excavation officially began, everyone became even more astonished when they realized the tomb was almost completely intact. It had been built deep within the rocky mountainside, extremely hidden and difficult to access. That secrecy protected the tomb from treasure hunters for more than 2 millennia. Just think about that for a moment. An untouched royal tomb from the Western Han Dynasty. Doesn't that mean every treasure, every secret, and every trace of ancient life had remained frozen in darkness, waiting for modern humans to uncover it for the very first time after more than 2,000 years? And just as the experts had hoped, the tomb contained an enormous number of artifacts that shocked the archaeological world. The owner of the tomb was identified as Liu Sheng, the brother of Emperor Wu of Han, one of the most famous emperors in Chinese history. According to ancient records, Liu Sheng lived an extremely luxurious lifestyle, loved alcohol, and was well known for his indulgent way of life. Legends say he had many children and spent his days enjoying the wealth and prosperity of the Western Han Dynasty at its peak. The treasures excavated from the tomb were truly breathtaking. In addition to the incredibly famous jade burial suet, archaeologists also uncovered numerous priceless artifacts, including a gold-gilded Boshan incense burner and countless finely crafted bronze objects. But among everything discovered inside the tomb, there was one artifact in particular that left the entire world in shock. It was the Changshan Palace lamp. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary ancient bronze lamp, but the more experts studied it, the more they realized it was practically a technological miracle far ahead of its time. The lamp was crafted with astonishing precision. Its shape resembles a kneeling palace maid holding a lantern with both hands. But the most remarkable feature lies inside its design. The lamp contains internal smoke channels specifically created to draw smoke into a hidden chamber inside the structure, reducing the amount of smoke released into the surrounding air. In other words, more than 2,000 years ago, ancient Chinese craftsmen had already created a lamp capable of reducing indoor air pollution. Even many modern people find that difficult to believe. After all, ideas about smoke control and environmental protection are usually considered modern concepts. Yet the Changshan Palace lamp proves that ancient civilizations had already begun thinking about those problems thousands of years ago. Archaeologists believe the lamp's design is so sophisticated that many of its manufacturing techniques still impress researchers today. And because of its extraordinary historical and technological value, the artifact quickly became one of China's most famous national treasures. Today, the Changshan Palace lamp not only attracts visitors from around the world, but is also considered one of the most unique treasures ever created by ancient human civilization. Isn't that absolutely fascinating? The skeletons of a Romeo and Juliet couple found embracing inside a 5,000-year-old tomb. Amid the vast freezing grasslands of Kazakhstan, where wild winds have swept across the barren earth for thousands of years, archaeologists uncovered an ancient tomb that left the entire world both emotional and deeply unsettled. Because buried deep beneath layers of ancient soil and stone were the skeletons of two people tightly embracing each other, as if they never wanted to let go. The scene immediately reminded many people of a real-life Romeo and Juliet story. But the most chilling part is this: the couple had remained there for nearly 5,000 years. This extraordinary discovery was excavated in Karaganda, a region of Kazakhstan. From the moment the tomb was opened, researchers realized this was not a typical ancient burial. The two skeletons had been placed directly beside each other, their bodies almost intertwined as though even death itself could not separate them. For 5 millennia, beneath the cold soil of the Kazakh steppe, those two people had remained side by side in complete darkness. No one knows their names. No one knows what kind of lives they once lived. But that tight embrace alone is enough to make people feel that a mysterious story lies behind them. What makes the discovery even more fascinating is what archaeologists found nearby. Beside the male skeleton were several arrowheads and a metal dagger. These items suggest the man may have been a warrior or someone of significant status within his ancient community. Meanwhile, the female skeleton was buried alongside numerous pieces of jewelry made from gemstones and bronze. But the object that especially caught the attention of experts was a green bracelet that still remained on her arm after thousands of years buried underground. The entire scene looked like a moment frozen in time. A man buried with weapons, a woman adorned with precious jewelry, and both lying beside each other as though desperately trying to hold on to one another during the final moments of their lives. According to archaeologists, the remains most likely belonged to an ancient married couple. But this is where the mystery truly begins. Archaeologist Igor Kukushkin, the leader of the excavation in Karaganda, Kazakhstan, believes the couple may once have sworn to stay together forever, and for some unknown reason, they died at the exact same moment. But there is another theory that is even more disturbing. One of them may have been killed in order to be buried alongside the other. And honestly, just hearing that possibility is enough to send chills down your spine. As you may know, many ancient civilizations practiced burial rituals in which living people were sacrificed to accompany the dead into the afterlife. That means the love story inside this tomb may not be entirely romantic after all. It may also contain tragedy, sacrifice, and death. However, Igor Kukushkin also stated that none of the current theories can be fully confirmed yet. According to him, it is entirely possible that the two individuals never even knew each other while they were alive. They may simply have died around the same time and been buried together according to the funeral customs of that era. Kukushkin explained that double burials like this are not especially rare in ancient archaeology, but what makes the Kazakhstan tomb unique is the unusual closeness of the two skeletons, creating the impression that they were truly embracing each other at the boundary between life and death. And the mystery does not end there. Right beside the couple's remains, archaeologists also discovered a small bronze chariot shaped as though it were being pulled by two horses. The scene resembles a ritual meant to carry the souls of the dead into the afterlife. Even more intriguing, archaeological evidence suggests that two real horses may have been intentionally killed and buried in order to create this ancient funeral chariot. That detail indicates the people buried in the tomb may have held extremely important status within their society. Although the tomb shows signs of having been looted in the distant past, strangely enough, the skeletons themselves remained almost completely untouched and undisturbed. Because of that, archaeologists have been given a rare opportunity to study the lives, relationship, and possible cause of death of this mysterious couple in far greater detail. And even today, after lying beneath the soil of Kazakhstan for more than 5,000 years, nobody knows exactly who they were. Were they truly husband and wife who loved each other until death? Were they tragic lovers torn apart by fate? Or were they simply two strangers accidentally buried side by side in a mysterious ancient ritual? Perhaps they carried the answer with them into the grave thousands of years ago. What about you? Who do you think they really were, and what secret do you believe lies behind this mysterious discovery? If you know anything about this excavation, don't hesitate to leave a comment and share your thoughts with everyone. 150-year-old mass grave in Poland containing skeletons that seem to be screaming beneath the earth. During the construction of a modern highway in eastern Poland, workers accidentally uncovered a deeply haunting mass grave, a place where dozens of skeletons lay piled on top of one another with their mouths wide open, as if they had been screaming beneath the earth for more than 150 years. This chilling discovery was excavated by archaeologists near the S17 highway connecting Lublin and Warsaw, close to the village of Zerdz in eastern Poland. At first, no one imagined that beneath the soil lay the remains of one of the bloodiest battles ever fought in the region during the 19th century. But as the first layers of earth were removed, experts began noticing large amounts of human bones emerging from the ground. And the deeper they dug, the heavier the atmosphere at the excavation site became. One skeleton after another appeared in twisted positions, lying tightly beside each other as though they had been hurriedly thrown into the pit after a brutal battle. What disturbed many people the most were the skulls. Numerous skeletons had jaws stretched unnaturally wide open, creating the horrifying impression that they were screaming or crying for help in the final moments before death. And honestly, just seeing a scene like that would be enough to give anyone chills. You would not be an exception. After comparing the findings with historical documents, experts confirmed that this was a mass grave connected to the Battle of Dzierżyn, which took place in 1863. It was a fierce battle during the Polish uprising against the Russian Empire in the 19th century. According to historical records, at that time a group of Russian soldiers was transporting military supplies and an extremely valuable shipment worth around 200,000 rubles, equivalent to roughly 2,500 pounds at the time. But while moving through the Dzierżyn area in what is now modern-day Poland, the convoy was ambushed by Polish insurgent forces. The battle became extremely violent. Nearly 200 Russian soldiers were killed during the fighting, while another 282 were captured. The soldiers who died were later buried together near the battlefield, and according to archaeologists, around 80 skeletons were discovered in the mass grave excavated in Zerdz, eastern Poland. What makes the discovery even more unsettling is that despite spending more than 150 years underground, the terrifying traces of war still seem visible on every skeleton. Some bodies were curled tightly inward. Others were piled on top of each other as though they had been buried in great haste immediately after the battle. And especially disturbing were the skulls with their mouths opened wide, creating the eerie feeling that the victims were still trapped in their final moments of pain. Experts believe this screaming appearance may have been caused naturally by the decomposition of the jaw muscles after death. However, for many people who witnessed the excavation site, the scene still felt deeply horrifying, as though the unfortunate soldiers were still trying to tell the story of what happened on that battlefield long ago. Beyond its archaeological importance, the discovery also reveals valuable new information about the Battle of Dzierżyn an event that once shocked 19th-century Polish history. The attack carried out by Polish insurgents against the Russian convoy is considered one of the greatest victories of the anti-Russian resistance movement during that period. But behind every line of history that records victory or defeat, there is always the death of countless human beings. And now, after more than 150 years forgotten beneath the ground, those skeletons have emerged into the light once again. Not as anonymous soldiers of a collapsed empire, but as the final surviving witnesses of a bloody battle from the past. And perhaps the most thought-provoking part of all this is that wars may end long ago, but the scars they leave behind sometimes remain buried beneath the earth for centuries, waiting for the day humanity accidentally uncovers them and is forced to confront the terrifying truths of history. 2 male skeletons, holding hands for 600 years, beneath the ground in London. While excavating land for the construction of the Crossrail Tunnel in central London, England, workers unexpectedly discovered 2 skeletons lying side by side beneath the earth. After examination by archaeologists, the remains were identified as 2 adult men dating back to the 15th century. Experts believe they may have died during the Black Death, the devastating plague pandemic that ravaged Europe after reaching London in 1348. The discovery was made in the Smithfield area, now located in central London, England. But during the Middle Ages, this site served as a massive mass burial ground used to bury victims of the plague. Researchers say that around 50,000 bodies were buried in this area during the height of the epidemic. As workers dug deeper underground for the Crossrail Tunnel project, they began uncovering layer upon layer of densely packed human remains. But among thousands of anonymous skeletons, one grave containing the remains of 2 men lying closely beside each other caused everyone to stop and stare. Their bodies had been placed parallel to one another, but their faces were turned toward each other. And the most remarkable detail of all was that the older man's hand still rested on the hand of the other, almost as if he were protecting or holding on to him during their final moments. According to further research, both men died at approximately 40 years old. Researcher Don Walker from the Museum of London Archaeology explained that this area had once been a cemetery specifically used for victims of the plague. He stated that the epidemic spread so rapidly that many families lost several members at the same time, making it common during that period for relatives to be buried together in the same grave. Because of this, experts suspect the 2 men may have been brothers or close family members. But things became even more mysterious when archaeologists closely examined the way the bodies had been positioned inside the grave. Don Walker believes it is possible the men were not actually holding hands when they died. Instead, someone may have intentionally placed their hands together before burial, and that possibility gives the grave far more emotional meaning than a typical burial ritual. If the 2 men were related, it may have been a family's way of ensuring they would remain together forever after death. But if they were not related by blood, the story becomes even more thought-provoking. It's entirely possible they were lovers, Don Walker suggested, and honestly, just hearing that idea is enough to leave many people stunned. Because during the harsh reality of the Middle Ages, in a time when plague and death spread across London, there may have existed a relationship so deeply personal that history never recorded it. What makes this grave so haunting is not simply the fact that the 2 skeletons have remained hand in hand for more than 600 years, but the feeling that they were still trying to hold on to each other amid the greatest catastrophe of their era. Scientists are currently conducting DNA testing to determine whether the 2 men were biologically related. Those results may help solve part of the mystery behind the unusual grave beneath the streets of London. But even today, whether they were brothers, friends, or lovers, the story of these 2 skeletons continues to move people around the world. Because in the middle of a pandemic that claimed millions of lives, amid chaos, fear, and death, there were still 2 human beings buried side by side, never letting go of each other's hands for more than 6 centuries. And honestly, that is deeply emotional, isn't it? 2,100-year-old human skeleton found at the bottom of the ocean. In early September 2016, in the Mediterranean Sea near the Greek island of Antikythera, archaeologists discovered something that stunned the entire world: the skeleton of an ancient human still lying inside the wreckage of a mysterious sunken ship. At a depth of about 180 feet beneath the surface, where sunlight can barely reach, the skeleton rested silently among rotting wooden beams, ancient statues, and countless treasures from the ancient Roman world. And the most chilling part is this: for more than 2,100 years, this man had remained at the bottom of the sea as if waiting for someone to finally tell his last story. The discovery was made by an international team of archaeologists during their investigation of the Antikythera shipwreck, the famous ancient vessel named after the Greek island of Antikythera, near where it sank thousands of years ago. According to scientists, the ship may have gone down sometime around the early years of the Common Era, or possibly even earlier during the pre-Christian period. Many experts believe that while traveling through the dangerous rocky waters near Antikythera Island, the ship violently collided with cliffs along the coastline. The impact was likely so catastrophic that the vessel shattered apart and sank rapidly before the people on board had any chance to escape. And the skeleton discovered in September 2016 may belong to one of the unfortunate victims of that disaster. What amazed archaeologists most is that despite lying underwater for more than 2,000 years, the shipwreck, priceless artifacts, and even the human skeleton remained extraordinarily well preserved. The cold and undisturbed environment at the bottom of the sea accidentally transformed the site into a gigantic time capsule of the ancient world. In fact, part of the Antikythera shipwreck had already been discovered in the early 1900s. As soon as the first artifacts were brought to the surface, the archaeological world was shocked by their incredible value. Afterward, countless treasure hunters and explorers rushed to the area hoping to uncover more life-changing treasures. Yet for more than 100 years, most of the ship continued to rest silently beneath the ocean, never fully explored. It was not until the 2016 excavation that many of the wreck's remaining secrets finally began to emerge. During this expedition, archaeologists recovered numerous valuable objects scattered around the wreck site. But there was one artifact that completely stunned scientists because of how advanced it seemed for its time. It was an ancient device containing an incredibly complex system of bronze gears. Many people call it the world's first computer. This famous artifact is known as the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient mechanical device used by the Romans to track the movements of the moon, the sun, and astronomical events. It almost sounds impossible, doesn't it? Because more than 2,000 years ago, while much of the world was still relying on extremely primitive tools, ancient people had already created a precision gear system so sophisticated that even modern engineers remain astonished by it today. That alone has made the Antikythera shipwreck one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries in human history. But perhaps the most important discovery is not the treasure or the artifacts, but the skeleton itself, the man who remained beneath the sea for more than 2 millennia. According to experts, DNA preserved in the bones may allow scientists to determine where he came from, what ethnic group he belonged to, how old he was when he died, and they may even be able to reconstruct his actual face. In other words, after more than 2,100 years lying beneath the waters of Greece, this unknown man may one day come back to life through modern science. And honestly, that is truly incredible. 900-year-old tomb in Sudan reveals 7 mysterious mummies and strange writings about heaven. In the barren lands along the Nile River in Sudan, there once stood an ancient city that served as the center of power for an entire medieval Christian kingdom. After centuries of wars, the collapse of dynasties, and hundreds of years buried beneath desert sands, the city gradually became a silent ruin in the middle of the wasteland. But no one could have imagined that deep beneath the ground of the ancient city of Old Dongola in Sudan, there existed a mysterious tomb hidden for nearly 900 years. A tomb containing mummies and strange ancient writings that have never been fully deciphered. The story began in 1993, when a Polish archaeological expedition led by Professor Stefan Jakobielski conducted excavations at Old Dongola, the former capital of the medieval kingdom of Makuria, located in the Nile region of present-day Sudan. Makuria was once a powerful Christian kingdom in Africa that flourished for many centuries. But in 1171 AD, after the Ayyubid dynasty gained control of Egypt, the northern region of Makuria was attacked, and the kingdom gradually disappeared into history. During the survey, archaeologists discovered traces of an ancient underground tomb. However, it was not until 2009 that an official excavation was finally carried out, and when the final layers of brick and stone were removed, the scene inside left archaeologists stunned. There were 7 mummies resting inside the tomb. According to Polish archaeologist Robert Mahler, all of the individuals buried there were older men over the age of 40. After the last person was placed inside, the entrance had been sealed shut with red bricks and mortar, almost completely isolating the chamber from the outside world for nearly an entire millennium. What made the discovery especially remarkable was that although the clothing on the mummies had deteriorated over time, experts determined that the burials were relatively simple, with the bodies mainly wrapped in linen cloth. But the true reason this excavation became famous throughout the archaeological world was not the mummies themselves. It was the writings covering the walls of the tomb. As researchers carefully cleaned away centuries of dust, rows of ancient inscriptions slowly appeared beneath the lights of the excavation site. The texts had been written in black ink over a thin white coating, using both Greek and Sahidic Coptic Egyptian, a language once used by ancient Christian communities in Egypt and Nubia. The walls contained passages from the Gospels of Luke, John, and Matthew, along with mysterious symbols and prayers dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Some of the writings even described how the Virgin Mary, after her death, was taken into heaven alongside Jesus Christ. All of these texts appeared to have been written by someone named Ioannis, because that signature was found repeatedly on the tomb walls. To this day, researchers still do not know exactly who Ioannis was. Was he a monk, a religious scribe, or perhaps the very person responsible for carrying out the burial rituals for those resting inside the tomb? And the deeper researchers investigated, the more mysterious the story became. One of the 7 mummies is believed to belong to Archbishop Georgios, one of the most powerful religious figures in the kingdom of Makuria at that time. Archaeologists discovered an inscription beside the mummy stating that he died in 1113 AD. If this theory is correct, then the old Dongola tomb was not simply an ordinary burial site, but may once have served as the resting place for the highest-ranking religious leaders of an entire ancient kingdom. What sends chills down many people's spines is the fact that for nearly 900 years, those mummies remained untouched in the darkness beneath the soil of Sudan, surrounded by ancient prayers written in languages that very few people today can still read. During the 2009 excavation, the mummies were removed for further study. The walls of the chamber were also completely cleaned, and every inscription was photographed and preserved for future translation and analysis. Even today, the research is still ongoing. Experts plan to publish all of the detailed findings about these mysterious writings in a future academic book. Until then, we can only wait and see what other secrets this ancient tomb may still reveal. 1,600-year-old mosaic that shocked the archaeological world. You know, archaeology is fascinating because there are discoveries that make people marvel for a few minutes and then quickly forget them. But there are also discoveries so extraordinary that the moment they are uncovered, they leave the entire research community stunned because their historical value is so immense that they can retell the story of an entire lost era. And the mosaic recently discovered near the capital city of Nicosia in the Republic of Cyprus is one of those incredibly rare treasures. At first, when the archaeological team led by expert Freni Hadji Tristofi accidentally uncovered a small section of the mosaic beneath layers of dirt and stone, they believed it might simply be an ordinary Roman-era floor that had survived underground. But the deeper they excavated, the more astonishing everything became. Before their eyes slowly emerged a massive and unbelievably intricate work of art, created from thousands of tiny colored stone pieces assembled sometime during the 4th century, approximately 1,600 years ago. According to the archaeological team, the mosaic was discovered near Nicosia on the Mediterranean island nation of Cyprus. Researchers consider this the first artwork ever found in Cyprus to depict a Roman chariot race in such remarkable detail. And not only is it rare in Cyprus, but even across the world. Mosaics preserved in such exceptional condition and with this level of craftsmanship can almost be counted on one hand. What excited researchers the most was the scene portrayed in the mosaic itself. The entire artwork depicts a chariot race inside an ancient Roman arena, where charioteers and their horses raced forward at terrifying speed while crowds of spectators cheered around them. Just by examining the smallest details, it becomes clear how astonishingly meticulous the ancient artist truly was. Every movement of the horses, every leaning posture of the riders, and every moment of tension within the race was recreated so vividly that the mosaic feels almost like an ancient film frozen in time. The excavated portion currently measures about 33 feet long and nearly 10 feet wide, but archaeologists believe the actual structure may be far larger because the area has not yet been fully excavated. That possibility alone has dramatically increased the site's historical value. Freni Haji-Christofi believes the site may once have been part of the villa of an extremely wealthy family living during the 4th century, a time when the Roman Empire still dominated much of Europe and the Mediterranean region. And upon closer inspection, researchers realized the mosaic was not simply decorative art. It appears to tell a complete story about an ancient chariot race. The artwork portrays all 4 stages of the competition using 4 different chariots, each with its own horses and rider. Even more remarkable, above each chariot are the names of both the rider and the horse, written in ancient Greek. This is the detail that caused experts to view the mosaic as a true historical treasure. In ancient Roman art, explicitly writing the names of figures on mosaics was extremely rare. Not only that, but each name appears to carry its own meaning, reflecting the personality or characteristics of the riders and horses involved in the race. This has given researchers valuable insight into the culture, language, and the way ancient Romans viewed entertainment competitions during that era. What is truly astonishing is that after spending more than 1,600 years buried underground, the mosaic remains in remarkably good condition. In many areas, the colors and details are still almost perfectly preserved. Freni Haji-Christofi herself stated that although it may take another 2 years to fully excavate the entire structure, the work is not especially difficult because the site has been preserved far better than anyone expected. And perhaps what excites people the most right now is the plan to place the artwork on public display once the excavation is complete. Because humanity rarely gets the chance to witness a true film made of stone. One that tells the story of life inside the Roman Empire more than 1,000 years ago. This is not simply a beautiful piece of art. It is a doorway leading directly back into an ancient world that disappeared from human history long ago. 2 700-year-old skeletons found holding hands beneath an ancient chapel in England. There are archaeological excavations that simply uncover a few old bones buried deep underground. But there are also discoveries that make even the most experienced scientists fall silent for a few seconds the moment they see them. And in Leicestershire, England, such a mystery has just been revealed beneath the foundations of the ancient St. Morel Chapel, a place that has hidden strange stories for more than 700 years. During the excavation of the chapel site, archaeologists discovered a number of skeletons buried deep beneath the ancient ground. At first, they believed it was simply a typical medieval cemetery, like many others previously found across Europe. But then, among the cold layers of soil and stone, an unexpected scene emerged that left the entire research team stunned. It was the sight of 2 skeletons lying side by side in what appeared to be a hand-holding position. They were not randomly stacked on top of each other, nor shifted by soil movement over time. Instead, their hands were placed very close together, creating the impression that the 2 individuals had been trying to hold on to each other before being buried centuries ago. Experts confirmed that the discovery was made during a recent excavation and immediately became a major focus in the archaeological world. Research shows that the skeletons are approximately 700 years old, meaning they were buried there in the 14th century, a turbulent period in medieval Europe. Just the thought that these 2 people have remained buried in that position for 7 centuries, as if still clinging to one another, is enough to send chills down the spine. Even more striking, archaeologist Vicky Score from the University of Leicester stated that the team had previously discovered many skeletons buried together in the same area. However, this was the first time they had ever found a pair positioned as if they were holding hands. And that detail raised a series of mysterious questions. Who were they? Why were they buried together beneath the floor of an ancient chapel? Were they relatives, a married couple, or was it simply a coincidence caused by burial practices at the time? To this day, these questions remain unanswered. But according to Vicky Score, what intrigued the researchers most was not only the pose of the skeletons, but also why this site became such a significant burial location in the first place. Most of the skeletons found here belong to the same historical period, suggesting that the area once held important meaning for the medieval community in England. Among 9 other skeletons discovered at the site, archaeologists also found the remains of a man who showed signs of severe trauma. His skull appeared to have been struck or pierced by a sharp object with great force. Experts believe he may have died during a violent conflict or physical altercation hundreds of years ago. In another case, a young man was found in a highly unusual burial position. His body had been placed in a pit, with his legs tightly drawn up toward his chest, as if he had been bound before burial. Researchers believe he may have died from a mysterious illness or a dangerous epidemic. Out of fear, people at the time may have tied his body before placing him in the ground. In addition to these mysterious remains, the archaeological team also uncovered various artifacts scattered beneath the chapel floor, including fragments of stone flooring, broken wall sections, and small pieces of brick near window areas. They also discovered a silver coin dating from between the 11th and 15th centuries, helping to further narrow down the historical timeline of the site. Researchers believe that all of the discoveries at St. Morel Chapel could become a crucial piece in filling the historical gap between the Roman period and the medieval era in England. Because each skeleton found here is not just the remains of a person, but also a silent witness to tragedy, disease, violence, and even human connection that existed hundreds of years ago. And perhaps the most haunting image of all remains the 2 skeletons lying side by side for 700 years beneath the cold earth. Whoever they truly were, even today, that final hand-holding pose continues to spark curiosity about a story that history itself has never fully told. The 1,000-year-old living Buddha statue in China that shocked the world. Hidden deep inside an ancient temple in China lies a secret that left even modern scientists stunned when the truth was finally revealed. That temple is Dinghui Temple in Wuhan, Hebei Province. For many years, both locals and visitors who entered the temple believed that the object being worshipped inside was simply a finely gilded statue of a monk, like many other Buddha statues. However, few could have imagined that beneath the golden surface there was not wood, stone, or cast metal, but the actual remains of a high-ranking monk who had passed away more than 1,000 years ago. This shocking discovery was only revealed in 2017 when scientists decided to conduct a special examination of this mysterious statue. They performed a CT scan, and the moment the results appeared on the screen, everyone present was left nearly speechless. Inside the statue was, in fact, the perfectly preserved mummy of an ancient monk. According to surviving historical records, the monk's name was Tsi Xian, originally from India. Between the 10th and 12th centuries, he traveled an extraordinary distance to the Khitan Kingdom, an ancient territory that once existed in what is now northern China, in order to spread Buddhism. He was not an ordinary monk. Tsi Xian was considered a highly respected scholar who translated 10 major Buddhist scriptures into Chinese. Because of his extraordinary contributions, he was appointed as state preceptor by the emperor, an extremely prestigious title reserved for individuals with major religious and intellectual influence. After his death, his body was carefully preserved by his disciples as a sacred relic. However, over centuries of historical turmoil, the mummy of this revered monk eventually disappeared from records. It was not until the 1970s that a surprising discovery brought Tsi Xian's story back to light. Inside an ancient cave in China, a monk's mummy was accidentally found in an almost perfectly preserved condition. After verification, experts concluded that it was very likely the lost remains of state preceptor Tsi Xian. The mummy was later moved to Dinghui Temple for worship in 2011. And in 2016, to show deep respect for the revered monk, the temple applied a layer of gold over the remains, making it look exactly like an exquisitely crafted ancient Buddha statue. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. On July 8, 2017, in the presence of media and the public, scientists conducted a full CT scan of the statue to examine its internal structure. The atmosphere was described as tense and filled with curiosity, as no one knew what remained inside after more than a millennium. And then the CT images appeared, leaving the entire room in shock. Doctors confirmed that beneath the golden layer, Tsi Xian's skeleton remained almost completely intact. Even more astonishingly, a fully preserved brain was still present inside the skull, an extremely rare condition for a body over 1,000 years old. Dr. Wu Yongqing, who directly participated in the examination, stated that the state of preservation exceeded all expectations. According to him, the monk's bones were still as clear and strong as those of a person who had only recently passed away. From the jawbone, teeth, ribs, spine to the joints, everything remained unbelievably intact. This immediately caused a major shockwave in the international scientific community, because for a body to remain so well preserved for over 1,000 years without significant decay is almost impossible. Some experts even believe this may be clear evidence of highly advanced preservation techniques used by ancient Buddhist monks. The 2,800-year-old remains of an ancient princess in France and the mystery of a lost civilization. People often assume that the greatest historical secrets must be hidden beneath the pyramids of Egypt or inside famous ancient cities, but in reality, some of the most fascinating discoveries can appear right in the middle of a dusty construction site. And this time, what was uncovered was not gold or treasure, but the remains of an ancient woman believed to be a princess who had rested beneath the ground for nearly 2,800 years. The story began in Saint-Vulbas in southeastern France, about 20 miles from the city of Lyon. While workers were using bulldozers to level the ground for the Plaine de l'Ain industrial zone, they suddenly noticed unusual traces beneath the soil. At first, many thought it was just rocks or decayed pieces of wood, but as they dug deeper, they uncovered what turned out to be an ancient burial ground. Soon after, experts from the French National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research, INRAP, arrived at the site to begin excavation, and beneath thousands of years of untouched soil, they discovered the remains of an oak coffin, along with fragments of human bones mixed into the earth. What immediately caught the researchers' attention was the way the woman had been buried. Her body was laid carefully inside a rectangular grave measuring about 9.5 feet long and 3.3 feet wide. Her arms were positioned neatly along her body, suggesting a burial ritual reserved for individuals of very high social status in ancient society. Although most of the body had decomposed over time, what remained was enough to convince archaeologists that this was not an ordinary grave. Most notably, near the skull, researchers found several ancient pottery items along with astonishingly well-crafted jewelry. On each wrist of the woman were bracelets made of blue glass beads mixed with small copper beads. This detail alone strongly suggests that she belonged to a wealthy or noble class of her time. Around the 8th century BCE, colored glass was an extremely rare and valuable material in ancient Europe. Not everyone had access to such ornaments. These small blue beads strongly indicate that the woman held a special status within her community. But the discoveries did not stop there. Archaeologists also found a copper alloy buckle about 2 inches wide near her waist. According to analysis, this suggests that the woman may have worn a leather belt during burial, an item that was not commonly used by ordinary people during that period. Even though time had heavily damaged much of the skeleton, several important bones were still preserved among the burial goods. Parts of the pelvis, femur, fragments of the skull, and sacrum were found scattered within the grave, giving scientists valuable information for further study. And interestingly, her grave was not isolated. According to INRAP experts, she was one of 3 individuals buried within the same ancient cemetery. All of them date back to the early Iron Age, around the 8th century BCE, a time when Europe was still home to ancient tribes and mysterious cultures. Based on archaeological evidence, researchers believe these individuals may have belonged to the Hallstatt culture, a civilization known for its highly advanced metalworking skills, especially in bronze and iron. They were also recognized for their farming techniques and their remarkably detailed craftsmanship. Around 800 BCE, southeastern France was a thriving trade region. Major trade routes connected the area to the Mediterranean, allowing constant exchange of copper, tin, and iron between tribes and ancient communities. This created a period of significant cultural and economic development. However, this era also saw increasing conflicts between tribes. Numerous hilltop fortresses were built with strong defensive walls and deep surrounding ditches to protect communities from sudden attacks. It is very possible that the woman buried near Saint-Vulbas lived during this turbulent time. She may have been the daughter of a powerful leader, or perhaps a noblewoman holding an important role within the Hallstatt society. No one can say for certain. All that remains after nearly 2,800 years are fragments of bone, blue glass beads, and a silent grave beneath the soil of France, a haunting reminder of a forgotten life lost to time. The mysterious book that guided ancient Egyptian souls through death. If one day humanity knew for certain where we go after death, would the world still fear dying? Thousands of years ago, the ancient Egyptians tried to answer that very question, and they believed that the journey after death did not end in darkness, but was only the beginning of entering an entirely different world, a realm filled with gods, demons, mysterious gates, and terrifying trials waiting for the souls of the dead. Because of that belief, one of the strangest and most famous texts in human history was created, the Book of the Dead. Today, the name Book of the Dead is the modern term used to describe a collection of ancient Egyptian religious texts. These books were not ordinary novels or historical records. The ancient Egyptians believed they could truly help the souls of the dead travel through the underworld and achieve eternal life in the afterlife. Many copies of these texts have been discovered inside ancient Egyptian tombs during archaeological excavations over the centuries. They were often buried alongside mummies, serving as a kind of map to guide the soul after leaving the world of the living. Interestingly, the Book of the Dead did not appear at the very beginning of ancient Egyptian history. It actually evolved from even older texts known as the Pyramid texts and the Coffin texts. The Pyramid texts first appeared during the 5th dynasty of the Old Kingdom around 2465 BCE to 2323 BCE. These spells were carved directly onto the walls of pyramids to protect pharaohs after death. Later, during the Middle Kingdom period, around 2030 BCE to 1640 BCE, the Egyptians developed the Coffin texts, spells written on wooden coffins for the deceased. Over time, these writings gradually evolved into what we now call the Book of the Dead, which became especially widespread during the New Kingdom of Egypt. But what makes this book truly extraordinary is not simply its age, but the content hidden inside it. The Book of the Dead did not exist in one fixed version. There was no standard copy used for everyone. Each manuscript contained different spells depending on the status, beliefs, or desires of the deceased as they entered the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians referred to these passages as spells. In hieroglyphics, the symbol used for the word resembled a human mouth because they believed spoken words carried immense mystical power. Some spells helped souls avoid demons. Others allowed the dead to open gates leading into the world of the gods. And some magical texts were believed to help the deceased transform their form in order to continue existing after death. The ancient Egyptians believed that after dying, the soul would begin a dangerous journey through the underworld. In that realm existed countless gods, terrifying creatures, and trials that would determine whether the soul deserved eternal life. One of the most famous rituals described in the Book of the Dead is the weighing of the heart ceremony. According to ancient Egyptian belief, the heart of the deceased would be placed on a scale and weighed against the feather of the goddess Maat, the deity representing truth and justice. If the heart was lighter than, or equal in weight to, the feather, the soul would be allowed to enter the realm of the gods. But if the heart was heavy with sin, the soul would be destroyed forever. Barry Kemp, an emeritus professor of Egyptology at the University of Cambridge, explained that certain spells in the Book of the Dead appeared far more frequently than others. Among the most famous is Spell 17, which references the sun god Ra, one of the most important deities in ancient Egyptian religion. What is especially remarkable is that many people who owned a Book of the Dead could not even read hieroglyphics, yet they were still able to understand the content through the highly detailed illustrations accompanying the spells. And perhaps the most surprising discovery for researchers is that this book was not only intended for the dead. According to many Egyptologists, numerous spells within the text were also used by people while they were still alive. Ancient Egyptians believed these rituals and incantations could help them overcome suffering, transform spiritually, and move closer to a divine state similar to the gods themselves. In other words, the Book of the Dead was not simply a guidebook for the afterlife. It was also a way for the ancient Egyptians to confront humanity's greatest fear, death and the unknown mysteries waiting beyond it. Even today, many copies of the Book of the Dead continue to be discovered inside ancient Egyptian tombs. Some spells were even written directly onto mummy wrappings, carved into tomb walls, and appeared on the golden funerary mask of Tutankhamun. The final versions of the Book of the Dead, are believed to have appeared around the 1st or 2nd century AD before gradually being replaced by another collection of texts known as the Books of Breathing. Yet after thousands of years, this mysterious book still fascinates the world because it reveals just how carefully the ancient Egyptians prepared for death, as if they truly believed that real life only began after a person closed their eyes for the final time. The 3,800-year-old Pyramid of Asia. When people think of pyramids, they usually imagine massive structures rising from the deserts of Egypt or hidden deep within the jungles of Central America. But did you know that in the vast plains of eastern Kazakhstan, there is an ancient structure with a completely unique design that is astonishing archaeologists around the world? Yes, this is a 3,800-year-old pyramid built by an ancient civilization that once lived and flourished in Central Asia. What makes this structure especially remarkable is its unusual shape. Instead of having a square base like the pyramids of Egypt or a stepped design like the Maya pyramids, the Kazakhstan pyramid features a perfectly hexagonal base, an extremely rare and mysterious design in the ancient world. According to Ulan Umitkaliev, head of the Department of Archaeology and Ethnology at the L.N. Gumilyov Eurasian National University, the structure was built from stone, with massive megalithic blocks weighing up to 1 ton placed at each corner, demonstrating the astonishing organizational and construction skills of the people who built it. Although the roof no longer survives, the presence of a large artificial mound above the structure has led researchers to believe that it was indeed a type of pyramid used as a burial site for nobility. Similar in function to the pyramids of ancient Egypt, inside the structure is a stone labyrinth standing about 10 feet tall, leading toward a central tomb that may once have belonged to a tribal leader or another high-ranking figure in society. Even more astonishing are the intricately carved stone walls depicting animals familiar to the steppe region, including camels and horses, creatures deeply connected to the nomadic lifestyle of the people who once lived there. The discoveries do not stop with the architecture itself. Archaeologists also uncovered numerous burial artifacts, including jewelry and ancient pottery, suggesting that the people of this civilization possessed highly developed metalworking and jewelry-making skills. Although researchers have not yet confirmed the presence of human remains, the tomb structure and the arrangement of the stone blocks already paint a vivid picture of a highly organized society with deep spiritual beliefs nearly 4,000 years ago. The inhabitants of this region are believed to have been skilled livestock herders who lived in large communities, capable of constructing monumental stone structures and leaving behind clear evidence of their existence through pyramids that are only now beginning to be fully explored. It is fair to say that this 3,800-year-old Asian pyramid is not only an archaeological wonder, but also an important piece of the puzzle helping humanity better understand a forgotten civilization hidden within the vast grasslands of Central Asia. 1,000-year-old tobacco jar reveals the mysterious formula of the ancient Maya. Hidden beneath the hot, dry soil of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, archaeologists have uncovered a small secret, one powerful enough to change the way scientists view the ancient Maya civilization. This time, it was not gold, pyramids, or famous prophecies that caused a sensation, but something hidden inside small ceramic jars buried underground for more than 1,000 years. At first glance, the jars looked like ordinary ancient pottery left behind from the past. But when scientists began analyzing the residue still clinging to the inside surfaces, they discovered something no one expected: traces of a mysterious plant that the Maya had once mixed into tobacco over 1,000 years ago. That plant was Mexican marigold, Tagetes lucida. This remarkable discovery was announced by a research team from Washington State University after they examined 14 ancient Maya ceramic vessels excavated from the Yucatan Peninsula. The jars were determined to have been buried more than 1,000 years ago, during the height of Maya civilization in Central America. Initially, the researchers only hoped to find traces of ancient tobacco inside the containers. And indeed, they identified 2 dried tobacco species once used by the Maya, Nicotiana tabacum and Nicotiana rustica, plants commonly associated with rituals and daily life among ancient peoples of the Americas. But what shocked the research team was the additional discovery of chemical traces from Tagetes lucida, a species of Mexican marigold never before identified in ancient Maya smoking containers. It may sound simple, but this was an extremely important breakthrough. For many years, scientists had found evidence only of tobacco in ancient Maya smoking artifacts. This discovery marked the first time researchers were able to prove that the Maya didn't smoke pure tobacco alone, but actually mixed other plants into their blends. According to lead researcher Mario Zimmerman, the Maya most likely used Mexican marigold to create a more relaxing and calming effect while smoking. The plant has long been known in Central American folk medicine for its distinctive aroma and soothing properties. This also suggests that the ancient Maya may have understood the effects of plants on the human body more than 1,000 years ago. And the deeper scientists investigate, the more they realize that Maya civilization may have possessed far more advanced knowledge of herbal medicine than previously believed. Mario Zimmerman explained that tobacco was widely used throughout the Americas both before and after Europeans arrived on the continent. However, evidence involving other plants used for medicine or religious rituals remains extremely rare. That is why this discovery has effectively opened an entirely new doorway into understanding the spiritual life of the ancient Maya. What makes the discovery even more fascinating is the technology used by the researchers. According to the scientists, a new analytical method developed by the Department of Anthropology and the Institute of Biological Chemistry can detect thousands of plant compounds still preserved inside ancient artifacts. From just a microscopic layer of residue left inside pottery jars, pipes, or bowls, researchers can determine which plants people used thousands of years ago. Just thinking about that is enough to feel unsettling, because it means that objects buried silently beneath the earth are still preserving traces of ancient human life after entire millennia have passed. Thanks to this technology, scientists are now able not only to study ancient tobacco, but also to investigate plants that may have influenced the nervous system, emotions, or spiritual rituals of pre-Columbian communities across the Americas. The Maya may have smoked, chewed, or inhaled many different plants that humanity still does not fully know about today. And this may only be the beginning. 202-million-year-old dragonfly fossil reveals a creature that survived Earth's most terrifying mass extinction. If we could travel back in time more than 200 million years, the first thing that would probably shock humanity would not be dinosaurs, but an Earth that looked as if it had just emerged from the apocalypse. Volcanoes erupted violently, the climate changed drastically, and countless species vanished from the planet forever. This was the time of the Triassic-Jurassic mass extinction, one of the most devastating biological disasters in Earth's history, when at least half of all species on the planet were completely wiped out. And yet, during that catastrophic period, some tiny creatures managed to survive in almost unbelievable ways. Evidence of this came recently when scientists in England discovered the fossil of an ancient dragonfly species that lived approximately 202 million years ago. This remarkable discovery was made at the Bowden's Quarry in Somerset, England. The site lies within the lower section of the White Lias Formation, an area that has previously revealed many valuable prehistoric fossils. But this discovery was even more extraordinary because the fossil belonged to the family Liasophlebiidae, a group of small dragonflies that became extinct long ago. At first, it may sound like nothing more than a tiny insect, but what scientists were actually looking at was an incredibly important piece of evolutionary history. According to experts, the Liasophlebiidae family belonged to the superorder Odonatoptera, one of the oldest lineages of winged insects ever to exist on Earth. This group may have first appeared as far back as the Carboniferous period, hundreds of millions of years before humans existed. What is truly astonishing is that this ancient dragonfly lineage survived the Triassic-Jurassic mass extinction around 200 million years ago, an event that wiped out enormous numbers of ancient species and completely reshaped Earth's ecosystems. And the newly discovered fossil dates almost exactly to the time when that catastrophe occurred. According to Emily Swaby of the Open University, the fossil consists of an incomplete forewing of an ancient dragonfly measuring about 1.7 inches long and nearly 0.4 inches wide. It may not sound large, but what stunned scientists was the fossil's extraordinary state of preservation. Every vein within the wing remained visible in terrifying detail after spending more than 200 million years buried underground. Experts explain that finding such an ancient specimen with this level of structural detail is extremely rare in paleontology, and it was precisely those preserved details that allowed researchers to identify it as the oldest known member of the Liasophlebiidae family. This means the ancient dragonfly lineage already existed before the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event occurred, rather than appearing afterward as many previous theories had suggested. In other words, this tiny creature directly endured one of the most horrifying periods in Earth's history and survived. After the mass extinction, as the environment gradually stabilized again, the species that survived began rapidly expanding to fill newly empty ecological niches, and this ancient dragonfly lineage was one of them. But perhaps the most surprising revelation came from scientists' reconstructed images of the insect. When researchers recreated its appearance based on the fossil, they realized the dragonfly from over 202 million years ago looked almost identical to modern dragonflies today. From the shape of its wings to the structure of its body, very little appears to have changed after more than 200 million years of evolution. And hearing that naturally raises an incredible question. How could such a small creature survive almost unchanged through countless transformations of Earth itself? While many gigantic species vanished forever, these tiny dragonflies continued flying across the planet from the age of dinosaurs all the way to the modern world. According to researchers, this discovery not only helps complete the evolutionary family tree of dragonflies, but also plays an important role in understanding how insects became the most numerous and successful group of organisms on modern Earth. Because if you really think about it, insects may truly be the most terrifying survivors in planetary history. They survived mass extinctions. They survived the age of dinosaurs. And in many ways, they adapted far better than countless giant creatures that once ruled the Earth. Pretty hard to imagine, isn't it? 1,700-year-old Roman cemetery discovered beneath a house basement. The story began when a homeowner in the Montconseil district of the city of Corbeil-Essonnes, south of Paris, decided to renovate the basement of their house. While digging beneath the old floor, they suddenly uncovered a human skeleton buried deep underground. At first, many people assumed it was simply an old forgotten grave from the Middle Ages, but no one could have imagined that this small discovery would lead to the excavation of an entire ancient cemetery buried for nearly 2,000 years. As soon as authorities were notified, French archaeologists quickly arrived at the site to begin investigating. And the deeper they dug, the more astonished they became as they uncovered numerous additional graves packed tightly beneath the house. So far, archaeologists have excavated a total of 38 graves within an area of approximately 560 square feet, spread across 4 basement rooms beneath the home. What makes the site even more remarkable is that the graves span nearly 700 years of history. The oldest burial dates back to the 3rd century AD, a time when the Roman Empire still ruled much of Europe. That means the earliest individuals buried there were laid to rest underground around 1,700 years ago. But as researchers continued their work, they realized the site was far more complex than they had first imagined. Initially, experts believed it was simply a medieval cemetery because a chapel had once existed in the area during the 7th century. However, the discovery of much older graves shocked everyone involved. It now appears that before the chapel was built, the land may have once been home to an even older pagan temple. In other words, this location may have served as a burial ground for many centuries in a row. Most of the newly discovered graves were arranged neatly in parallel rows. The bodies had been laid on their backs inside wooden coffins that have now almost completely decayed with time. But what drew the greatest attention from archaeologists were 10 burials dating to the Merovingian period of the Franks, a Germanic people who ruled large parts of Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire. Unlike the other graves, these individuals were buried inside unusual plaster sarcophagi arranged in a fan-shaped pattern. According to experts, Merovingian coffins have been discovered in other parts of France before. Some were decorated with carvings and occasionally contained multiple bodies at once. But strangely, most of the coffins uncovered in Corbeil-Essonnes had no decorations at all, and each contained only a single individual. That discovery immediately raised a series of new questions for researchers. Who were the people buried beneath the ground here? Why was this location used as a cemetery for nearly 700 years? And what caused a site that may once have been a pagan temple to later become a cemetery, and eventually the location of a medieval chapel? At present, archaeologists are continuing to excavate and study the newly discovered skeletons. Detailed examinations will be conducted to determine the age, sex, health conditions, and even the diets of the people who lived there thousands of years ago. Hitler's bunker hidden 98 feet underground in the forests of France. Deep within the dark forests of northern France, where fog and moss have nearly swallowed every trace of war, there was a secret that for decades few people dared believe was real. This secret was not an ordinary bunker, nor an abandoned ruin lost to time, but a massive underground base believed to have served as Adolf Hitler's final hideout outside German territory during World War II. And the most terrifying part was that above the bunker, hidden in the middle of the forest, sat an old abandoned swimming pool, used as camouflage. This shocking discovery was uncovered in a remote rural area of northern France by Marc Ascat, a French explorer and urban photographer. During a forest expedition, Marc and his team accidentally came across strange structures hidden beneath dense vegetation and thick layers of moss. At first, no one imagined that beneath the ruined landscape lay a secret military labyrinth once connected to the name that terrified the entire world. To reach the site, Marc Ascat explained that the expedition team had to cross extremely difficult terrain. Wild plants completely blocked the paths, the ground was slippery, and the freezing air gave everyone the unsettling feeling that they were entering a place that should not exist. Time and nature had almost succeeded in concealing the entire structure for decades. But when the rusted iron doors were finally forced open, a dark and freezing underground world stretched endlessly before them deep beneath the earth. From the very first steps inside, the team could not hide their fear. Endless hallways covered in dust and mold extended deep underground like a maze. Some sections were so dark that flashlight beams seemed to be swallowed whole by the blackness. The concrete walls had decayed with time, stained with faded writings and wartime markings left behind decades earlier. Every room they entered felt as though history itself had become trapped there. According to the expedition team's findings, the underground base consisted of countless rooms of various sizes, connected by a network of tunnels stretching nearly 6 miles in length. The deepest sections reached approximately 98 feet below ground level. Because the bunker had been built so far underground, natural light could barely penetrate inside. The suffocating atmosphere, crushing silence, and bone-chilling cold made it almost impossible for anyone entering the structure to remain calm for very long. The explorers believe this was one of the final secret bases used by Hitler and the Nazi German military outside Germany during the final stages of World War II. From this underground fortress hidden in the forests of France, major military orders were allegedly issued. It may also have been the place where some of the Nazi regime's final plans were made before its complete collapse. But what made the story even more disturbing was the strange feeling of presence inside the bunker. Marc Ascat said that the deeper the group ventured underground, the more they felt as if something was watching them from the darkness. Echoing sounds reverberating through the empty corridors sent chills down everyone's spine. Several times, they had to stop simply to calm themselves before continuing deeper into the underground maze. After capturing a large number of photographs inside the secret base, Marc and his colleagues hesitated for a long time before releasing them to the public. Robert Conrad, another member of the team, was reportedly afraid that his life could be in danger if the images were widely shared. Because this place was not merely an abandoned structure, but a dark piece of history tied to one of the most infamous figures in human history. Even so, after much consideration, Marc Ascat ultimately decided to publish all of the photographs of the secret bunker. He believed that no matter how terrifying it might be, it remained a part of history that the world needed to confront. And perhaps that is why, even today, hidden beneath the cold and desolate forests of France, the underground base nearly 98 feet below the surface continues to be one of the mysteries that fascinates and haunts people whenever it is mentioned. 1,500-year-old Roman treasure hidden in a Spanish olive forest. You know, archaeology has always been fascinating. Some discoveries are fairly ordinary, but others are extraordinary in their own unique way. Discoveries that leave the entire world stunned, not because of gold or jewels, but because they feel like a doorway suddenly opening into a past buried for thousands of years. And in a peaceful olive forest in the village of Reus, in the Andalusia region of Spain, archaeologists accidentally stumbled upon one of those incredible discoveries. In March 2021, Spanish archaeologists officially announced the discovery of a massive archaeological treasure hidden beneath this olive forest. During February and March of that year, the excavation team worked almost non-stop to uncover the entire site. Under the dry, scorching heat of southern Spain, layer after layer of soil and rock was carefully removed, and ancient structures slowly began to emerge before their eyes. The first major discovery was the remains of a large Roman villa estimated to be around 1,500 years old. Nearby, archaeologists uncovered an ancient pottery kiln with clear traces of production still visible despite centuries of decay. But the discoveries did not stop there. The team also found an ancient cemetery located close to the villa. Although the site has not yet been fully excavated, researchers said they are continuing to investigate the area because it may still contain many secrets connected to the people who once lived there. So far, no major new information about the cemetery has been released, which has only made people even more curious about what may still lie hidden beneath the ground. However, none of those discoveries turned out to be the most valuable find. The artifact that truly shocked the archaeological world was hidden inside the ancient villa itself. After weeks of careful excavation, the research team led by the University of Jaén in Spain finally uncovered what many considered the soul of this entire archaeological treasure. It was a gigantic Roman mosaic measuring approximately 30 feet by 39 feet. The moment the final layer of dirt was brushed away, the archaeological team was almost speechless at the sight before them. A massive work of art, filled with incredibly detailed colors and patterns, had remained preserved underground for more than a millennium. From a distance, the mosaic looked like a giant jeweled carpet, created from thousands of tiny pieces. According to researchers, the mosaic was assembled from countless colored tiles ranging in size from only about 0.04 inches to 0.6 inches. These tiny pieces were handcrafted from marble, colored glass, ceramics, and even seashells. Just imagining ancient craftsmen cutting every small piece by hand and assembling them one by one is enough to understand how incredibly labor-intensive this masterpiece truly was. And you know what? Roman mosaics were not merely decorative artwork. They were also symbols of wealth and power. Creating a mosaic of this scale required enormous amounts of money to import precious stones and rare materials from different regions. Skilled artisans then spent huge amounts of time cutting and arranging every detail as perfectly as possible. Because of this, only extremely wealthy families or major public buildings could afford such luxurious works of art. Archaeologists explain that Roman mosaics have been discovered throughout the Mediterranean, Africa, and even Britain. However, finding one as massive and as well preserved as the mosaic in Rus, Andalusia is incredibly rare. The discovery suggests that this area may once have been an important residential center for the Roman upper class. The deeper experts investigate the site, the more convinced they become that this is not just an ordinary archaeological location, but an extremely important cultural heritage site for Spain. Beneath the soil of that olive forest, there may still be countless undiscovered structures and artifacts waiting to be revealed. Every new discovery acts like another puzzle piece, helping humanity slowly reconstruct the ancient history of the village of Rus after thousands of years of being forgotten. And perhaps the most astonishing thing of all is that such an enormous treasure could remain hidden underground for 1,500 years without anyone ever knowing it existed. It was not until March 2021, when the first excavation tools struck the earth in the olive forest of Andalusia, Spain, that an entire world of ancient Rome was finally awakened once again. Mysterious and truly fascinating, isn't it? Massive 1,312-foot pyramid hidden in the Amazon rainforest has sparked scientific debate for years. Deep within the vast Amazon rainforest of Peru, where dense jungle stretches endlessly to the horizon and nearly swallows every trace of humanity, there stands a mysterious mountain that has captured the curiosity of the entire world. From above, it appears like a gigantic pyramid rising straight out of the endless sea of green forest. The mountain's unusually smooth slopes make it difficult for anyone seeing it for the first time to believe that it could simply be a natural formation. And for many years, people have continued asking the same mysterious question: could this actually be an ancient pyramid buried deep within the Amazon? This mysterious structure is known as Cerro El Cono, located deep inside Peru's Sierra del Divisor National Park in South America. The mountain stands approximately 1,312 feet tall and rises prominently above the otherwise relatively flat terrain of the Amazon rainforest. Its strange appearance has made Cerro El Cono one of the most mysterious locations in the region. Local people often refer to it as the Cone Hill because its shape closely resembles a gigantic pyramid with remarkably even slopes. Although the entire surface is now covered by thick tropical vegetation, its unusual form can still be recognized from a distance. What makes it even more remarkable is that, on clear days, Cerro El Cono can reportedly be seen from nearly 250 miles away. In the middle of the immense Amazon rainforest, the isolated appearance of such a towering green pyramid creates a feeling that is incredibly difficult to explain. Because of this, the site has long attracted the attention of explorers, archaeologists, and geologists alike. For the indigenous tribes living around the Peruvian Amazon, Cerro El Cono is far more than just a mountain. They view it as a sacred guardian spirit and refer to it as an Andean Apu, a protective deity watching over the community. That belief has existed for centuries, even predating the Inca Empire, sometime between 500 and 1000 AD. These ancient legends have led many people to believe that Cerro El Cono may not be a natural formation at all. Some theories suggest that it could be a massive pyramid buried beneath Amazonian vegetation for thousands of years, built by a civilization that disappeared from history. Just imagine for a moment if that were true. Hidden within the Amazon rainforest could stand an ancient structure reaching 1,312 feet tall, far surpassing many of the world's most famous ancient monuments. The thought alone is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? To better understand the scale, let's compare it to other famous pyramids around the world. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, the most famous pyramid on Earth, stands only about 479 feet tall. Meanwhile, Gunung Padang in Indonesia rises approximately 312 feet, and the Yonaguni Monument near Japan reaches only around 89 feet. So if Cerro El Cono truly were man-made, could it become the largest ancient structure ever discovered in human history? And it is precisely because of that enormous scale that the mystery surrounding Cerro El Cono has become more fascinating than ever. However, not everyone believes the Amazon Pyramid theory. Many geologists who have studied the site argue that Cerro El Cono is most likely a rare natural formation. According to them, it could be the core of an ancient extinct volcano known as a volcanic plug, hardened magma left behind over millions of years while the surrounding rock gradually eroded away. Other experts favor the theory that it is the result of a natural magma intrusion, where cooled lava formed a structure resembling a pyramid. In other words, nature itself may have accidentally created something that humans mistake for the work of an ancient civilization. Even so, no final conclusion has yet been reached that can fully end the debate surrounding Cerro El Cono. Massive boulders suspended for 12,000 years without ever falling in the forests of Finland. In the quiet forests of Ruokolahti, in the South Karelia region of southeastern Finland, there is a bizarre sight that leaves almost everyone frozen in disbelief the first time they see it. It is a gigantic boulder weighing hundreds of tons, balanced precariously on top of a much smaller rock beneath it, with such a tiny contact point that it looks as though a gentle push could send it rolling down at any moment. But the truly mysterious part is this: the boulder has remained perfectly in place for thousands of years, deep in the forest without ever falling. Local people call it Kumakivi, which in Finnish means strange rock. And honestly, the name could not be more fitting for such an unbelievable sight. In the middle of Finland's wild natural landscape, this enormous rock appears to challenge every rule of gravity and balance. What amazes people the most is that despite looking incredibly unstable, Kumakivi stands firmly in place in an almost unsettling way. Over the years, many curious visitors and tourists have tried pushing against the rock with significant force, yet the result has always been the same. It barely moves at all. Standing in front of the boulder is difficult to describe. It feels like witnessing something that should not even exist in the real world. Hidden deep within the forests of Ruokolahti, Kumakivi has long become one of Europe's most famous mysterious natural phenomena. And the more closely people examine it, the stranger it seems. The upper rock is unusually smooth and rounded, while the stone beneath it is much smaller and slightly curved, creating an extremely unbalanced appearance. Just looking at it with the naked eye is enough to make many people feel as though it could collapse at any second. Because of its bizarre appearance, mysterious stories about Kumakivi have been passed down through generations in Finland. Some ancient legends claim the rock was placed there by giants. According to local folklore, enormous beings with supernatural strength carried the boulder and positioned it there as some kind of joke of nature. It may sound like mythology, but once you see Kumakivi in person, you begin to understand why those legends exist. It is genuinely difficult to believe that such a massive rock could naturally balance so perfectly on such a tiny point of contact. Scientists and geologists, however, offer a completely different explanation. After years of research, experts believe Kumakivi is actually a remnant from the last ice age around 12,000 years ago. According to geologists, during the ice age, enormous glaciers moved through the Ruokolahti region of Finland. As they advanced, the glaciers carried massive rocks and boulders from other areas before eventually depositing them in different locations as the ice melted away. Kumakivi is believed to be one of those glacial boulders. What makes it special is that the rock happened to land perfectly on a lower stone, shaped in a way that allowed it to remain balanced. Over thousands of years of exposure to wind, rain, snow, and the surrounding environment, it has barely shifted at all. Scientists believe that the unique center of gravity and the contact surface between the two rocks are what have kept Kumakivi stable for millennia. Just imagine it for 12,000 years, through the brutal winters of northern Europe, endless snowstorms, and countless geological changes, the rock has remained standing exactly where it is, almost as if time itself cannot affect it. Simply thinking about that is enough to realize that nature can sometimes create things even stranger than human imagination, isn't it? Today, Kumakivi has become one of Finland's most famous destinations for people fascinated by nature and mysterious phenomena. Deep within the silent forests of Ruokolahti, the rock still rests there precariously, like a giant puzzle left behind by nature for humanity to solve. Some visitors come here simply to see with their own eyes whether it is truly as strange as the stories claim. Others want to experience the feeling of standing before a phenomenon that has existed for thousands of years, almost completely unchanged. And some people just want to understand how a rock that appears ready to fall at any moment could remain standing for so long. So what about you? If you stood face to face with this mysterious rock, what would you think and what would you do? 100-year-old stone road hidden deep in the forests of northwestern Vietnam. You know, deep within the misty mountains of northwestern Vietnam, where endless mountain ranges stretch toward the horizon and ancient forests still remain untouched, there exists an old road that has survived for more than 100 years, yet very few people outside the region know about it. Unlike famous tourist attractions, this road is not crowded or widely featured across social media. Instead, it quietly rests deep in the forest, covered in moss and carrying a beauty that feels as though it came straight out of an old fairy tale. And what makes it even more special is that, even today, local highland communities still walk along this very stone road every single day. This is the Pha Vi Stone Road, an ancient route located between Lai Chau and Lao Cai provinces in the mountainous northern region of Vietnam. For generations, the road has been an important part of daily life for the ethnic communities living there. It connects the village of New Co San with Sang Ma Pho village, winding through primeval forests, cardamom plantations, and the towering mountain slopes that define the landscape of northwestern Vietnam. From a distance, the Pha Vi Stone Road looks like an ancient trail forgotten by time in the middle of the mountains. Moss-covered stone slabs lie silently beneath the canopy of old trees, creating scenery that feels both peaceful and mysterious. Many people visiting the area for the first time say it feels like stepping into an ancient adventure film. Honestly, I felt exactly the same way, and I think you probably would too if you ever came here. According to information from the Lao Cai Provincial Electronic Information Portal of Vietnam, the road was named after Auguste Jean-Marie Pavier, a French administrator who once worked in French Indochina. Construction of the road began in 1920 and took 7 years to complete. What makes the project truly astonishing is that the entire route was built completely by hand using massive stones and river rocks. Considering the rugged mountain terrain of northwestern Vietnam more than a century ago, constructing such a road was an incredible achievement. Originally, the Pavie Stone Road stretched approximately 50 miles in total length. However, the road itself was never especially wide. Even the widest sections measured only a little over 10 feet across. Despite that, the stone surfaces were carefully smoothed to make travel easier through the rough mountainous terrain. The road was not originally built for tourism like it is today. At the time, it served as a vital transportation route connecting the provinces of Lao Cai and Lai Chau. Local people used human labor along with horses, buffalo, and cattle to carry goods through the mountains of northwestern Vietnam along this stone path. Over time, wars, natural disasters, and changes in modern life caused much of the road to disappear. Today, only about 8.7 miles of the original Pavie Stone Road remain relatively intact. Even so, the ancient moss-covered stones still rest there like silent witnesses to more than a century of history. Residents of villages such as Sang Ma Sao and Sang Ma Pho, located in Lao Chai and Lai Chau provinces, still use the road in their daily lives. To them, the Pavie Stone Road is not just an old pathway. It is a part of their memories, culture, and identity tied closely to life in the mountains of northwestern Vietnam. The deeper people travel along this road, the more they can truly feel the unique beauty of Vietnam's natural landscape. On one side lies the deep green forest, while on the other stand mountain ranges disappearing into white clouds. The cold air and scent of forest trees create an atmosphere that feels peaceful yet nostalgic, almost as if time itself is moving backward into the past. Because of its special historical and cultural value, Vietnamese authorities conducted surveys in 2019 to help connect and develop tourism around the Pavie Stone Road. The results showed that the area holds enormous potential for adventure tourism while also helping preserve the long-standing cultural and historical heritage of the northwestern region. Today, the Pavie Stone Road has gradually become a favorite trekking destination for people who love exploration. 7 mysterious funeral urns discovered in the Amazon reveal traces of a lost ancient civilization. Hundreds of years ago, deep within the vast Amazon rainforest of Brazil, ancient communities once lived in ways that modern humans still do not fully understand. They created their own rituals, buried their dead according to mysterious traditions, and left strange traces hidden beneath the earth. Then one day, after a tree collapsed, that secret finally began to reveal itself through ancient funerary urns containing the remains of both humans and animals. This mysterious discovery was made at the Lago Cochila archaeological site, located in the Amazon region of Brazil, the largest country in South America. After local villagers reported the fallen tree and the strange objects uncovered beneath it, archaeologists from the Mamirawa Institute quickly arrived to investigate the site, and what they found shocked many people. Hidden underground were several enormous ancient urns used to store cremated remains, containing the bones of both humans and animals from ancient times. In total, 7 urns were discovered, including 2 that were exceptionally large. Even today, however, researchers still cannot determine exactly which ancient Amazonian culture these urns belong to or precisely when they were buried. What makes this discovery so extraordinary is not only the number or size of the urns, but also what was found inside them. According to archaeologists, the urns were buried approximately 16 inches beneath the ground. When they were opened, researchers discovered not only human remains, but also bones from several animal species, including fish and turtles. This immediately sparked numerous theories about mysterious funeral rituals once practiced by ancient indigenous communities in the Amazon. Hundreds, perhaps even thousands of years ago, deep inside the largest rainforest on Earth, human communities may have lived with incredibly complex burial traditions. They did not simply bury the ashes of the dead, they also placed animal remains inside the same urns. That almost certainly carried some kind of spiritual or religious meaning. One of the archaeologists directly involved in the research was Georgia Leila Hollanda from the Mamirawa Institute. She explained that the urns possess several highly unusual characteristics compared to other artifacts previously discovered in the Amazon region. According to Hollanda, the urns are extremely large, yet none of them were found with ceramic lids. This led the research team to believe that ancient people may have sealed the urns using organic materials such as wood, leaves, or plant fibers. However, after such a long period of time, those materials would have completely decomposed and disappeared. That small detail opened the door to many new questions about the manufacturing techniques and burial practices of ancient civilizations in the Amazon rainforest. Because if these people truly used organic materials to seal funerary urns, it suggests they possessed construction skills and environmental knowledge far more advanced than previously believed. And the mystery does not stop there. The burial location of the urns also attracted major attention from archaeologists. According to experts, the urns may have been buried beneath the remains of ancient architectural structures, possibly even the foundations of homes that once stood in the area. In other words, this site may once have been a large settlement belonging to an ancient civilization that disappeared deep within the Amazon long before Europeans ever arrived in South America. The discovery is also helping reshape long-standing assumptions about the ancient Amazon. In the past, many people believed the rainforest was too harsh to support large, advanced societies. But what was discovered at Lago Cochila suggests the exact opposite. Researchers now believe the area may once have been home to organized communities with complex social structures, unique spiritual beliefs, elaborate burial rituals, and cultures far more sophisticated than previously imagined. What is especially important is that this is not the only discovery suggesting the Amazon once supported large civilizations. In recent years, numerous ruins, ancient cities, and mysterious structures have been uncovered beneath the dense forests of South America. And with every new discovery, another piece of the puzzle seems to reveal a stunning possibility that the ancient Amazon may once have been home to remarkably advanced societies. It's honestly hard to believe, isn't it? Hundreds of gold coins hidden inside a mysterious can, deep in the forests of the Czech Republic. Decades ago, during one of the most turbulent periods in European history, someone may have carried all of their most valuable possessions deep into the forests of the Krkonoše Mountains in the Czech Republic and secretly buried everything beneath the ground. Perhaps they believed they would one day return to reclaim it, but as time passed, wars ended, the world changed, and the treasure remained forgotten for nearly a century in the cold wilderness of the forest. Until now, during what seemed like an ordinary hike through the forests of the Krkonoše mountain range in the Czech Republic, a country located in Central Europe, two men accidentally uncovered a historical mystery that quickly captured the attention of archaeologists. As they walked past an old stone wall hidden deep in the forest, they noticed something unusual concealed within it. Just minutes later, they realized they had stumbled upon a real treasure. Hidden among the aged stones was an aluminum can filled with ancient gold coins. But the most astonishing part was that this was only the beginning. Just a few steps away, the two men discovered another metal box buried underground. When they opened it, they found a collection of gold jewelry and valuable personal belongings. From bracelets and necklaces to antique cigarette cases, nearly everything had remained astonishingly intact despite spending decades underground. According to initial estimates, the total weight of the artifacts reached approximately 15 pounds, with an estimated value exceeding $330,000. However, for historians and researchers, the true value of this treasure lies not in the money, but in the mystery surrounding it. Shortly after the shocking discovery, all of the artifacts were transferred to the East Bohemia Museum in the Czech Republic for detailed examination and research. Miroslav Novak, head of the museum's archaeology department, explained that burying valuable possessions underground was once a fairly common practice throughout human history. Originally, the act often carried religious or spiritual meaning, but later, especially during times of war and social chaos, people frequently hid their valuables in the hope of returning for them once conditions became safe again. And that is precisely what makes the treasure hidden in the Krkonoše forest so mysterious. According to experts, the valuables were most likely buried during the turbulent events of the 20th century, a time when Europe was consumed by war, conflict, and mass migration. One theory suggests that the owner was forced to flee when Nazi Germany expanded its control over the region and decided to hide their entire fortune before escaping. Another theory proposes that the treasure may have belonged to ethnic Germans once living in the area who buried their possessions to prevent them from being confiscated or lost after the war. But to this day, the true identity of the person who buried the treasure remains completely unknown. Nearly 100 years ago, someone may have stood in that freezing forest holding a can full of gold, silently digging into the ground in fear before burying everything they owned. Perhaps they believed they would return only a few months later, but in the end, they never came back. Initial inventory reports revealed that the mysterious aluminum can contained 598 gold coins. The coins had been divided into 11 separate stacks and carefully wrapped in black fabric before being buried underground. Based on the markings and manufacturing techniques, experts determined that the coins were minted between 1808 and 1915. Meanwhile, the metal box contained 16 antique cigarette cases, 10 gold bracelets, necklaces with attached keys, and several other valuable items. What astonished specialists the most was the incredible condition of the treasure. After nearly a century buried beneath the forests of the Czech Republic, most of the artifacts remained remarkably well preserved. According to archaeologists, discoveries like this are extremely rare, especially when they involve such a large quantity of precious metals. But beyond its material value, this treasure feels like a surviving fragment of history, a place where war, fear, and human hope still remain etched into every old gold coin. Because of that, archaeologists say that once the research process is completed, the East Bohemia Museum plans to publicly display the entire collection so visitors can witness this mysterious treasure with their own eyes. And as for the two men who accidentally discovered the treasure deep in the forest, they are expected to receive a reward equal to 10% of the treasure's value under local regulations. A pretty heartwarming ending, wouldn't you say? The Lost Khmer City, hidden in the forests of Cambodia and the secret buried for thousands of years. Hidden deep beneath the dense jungles of Cambodia, where people once believed there was nothing but ancient trees, wild animals, and forgotten traces of war, archaeologists have uncovered an enormous ancient city that existed more than 1,200 years ago. What makes the discovery so unsettling is that for centuries, nobody knew exactly where it was. No maps, no roads, no obvious traces. The city seemed to have been completely swallowed by the jungle and erased from human history. And to find it, researchers were forced to use laser technology capable of scanning through the thick forest canopy from the air. That mysterious city is called Mahendra Parvata, located in the Phnom Kulen mountain range in northern Cambodia, a Southeast Asian country that was once the center of the ancient Khmer Empire. According to research published in the academic journal Antiquity, archaeologists combined modern LiDAR technology with on-site field surveys to reveal, for the very first time, the true scale of this lost urban center. Previously, Mahendra Parvata was known only through a few isolated temples scattered throughout the forest. Nobody imagined that beneath the thick vegetation lay the remains of an enormous ancient capital city. But reaching the site was never easy. You see, the remote jungles of Cambodia, with their harsh terrain almost completely isolated from the outside world, once served as the final stronghold of the Khmer Rouge until the 1990s. That meant landmines and unexploded ordnance were still scattered throughout the region, turning every step taken by archaeologists into an incredibly dangerous gamble. Because of that, for many years, the city of Mahendra Parvata remained hidden beneath the jungle, impossible to fully explore. Everything changed when experts began using LiDAR technology, an advanced laser scanning system capable of penetrating dense vegetation to reconstruct the terrain hidden underneath. The same technology is often used in self-driving cars and modern surveying projects, but in Cambodia, it became the key to unlocking one of Southeast Asia's greatest archaeological secrets. When the first data appeared, researchers were genuinely stunned. Beneath the jungle lay the remains of an entire ancient city, carefully planned with massive architectural structures, road systems, ceremonial buildings, and residential zones stretching across the mountains. According to experts, Mahendra Parvata dates back to the 8th and 9th centuries AD and once served as the first capital of the ancient Khmer Empire, existing even before the famous Angkor Wat complex. That makes the discovery incredibly important because Angkor has long been considered the greatest center of Khmer power. But now, Mahendra Parvata may actually represent the original foundation upon which the later empire was built, and the mysteries do not end there. LiDAR technology also revealed that the ancient city once possessed an extremely ambitious water management system. Archaeologists discovered evidence of a massive hydraulic network that included reservoirs, canals, and complex water control structures. But strangely, the system appears to have never been fully completed. According to researchers, the failure of the irrigation network may have prevented rice agriculture from developing enough to sustain the city as a long-term political center. And that could be one of the reasons why Mahendraparvata eventually disappeared from history. Even so, despite its failure, the system is believed to have inspired the gigantic artificial reservoirs later constructed at Angkor, which eventually became the largest ancient urban complex in the world. One of the most mysterious discoveries at Mahendraparvata is a series of 365 ancient earthen mounds arranged into 15 unusually geometric groups. Yes, you heard that correctly. 365 separate mounds deliberately constructed according to a specific design rather than formed naturally. Inside the mounds, researchers discovered pottery and construction traces dating back to the 10th century AD. However, to this day, the true purpose of these structures remains unknown. The giant stone sphere, hidden in the forests of Bosnia. Deep within the cold forests of Bosnia, a country located in southeastern Europe, lies a mystery that has sparked intense debate among archaeologists for many years. It is not a pyramid, a mummy, or a buried treasure of gold and silver, but a gigantic stone sphere resting alone in the middle of the forest with a shape so perfectly round that many people believe it could not possibly have been formed by nature. What makes this mysterious object even more intriguing is that it may be more than just a geological phenomenon. According to some researchers, it could be the final surviving trace of an ancient civilization that disappeared from human history more than 1,500 years ago. And the story began on April 11, 2016. At that time, international media outlets simultaneously reported the discovery of a massive stone sphere hidden in a forest near the town of Zavidovici in Bosnia. According to the first reports, the sphere measured approximately 10 feet in diameter and contained an unusually high concentration of iron within its stone structure. As soon as photographs of the object appeared online, the discovery immediately caused a stir among archaeologists and people fascinated by ancient mysteries around the world. Because in nature, the appearance of such a large and nearly perfect stone sphere is already extremely rare. But what drew even more attention was the controversial claim made by Bosnian archaeologist Dr. Samir Osmanagić. According to Samir Osmanagić, the sphere was not a natural formation. He believed it was a man-made object created by an ancient civilization that once existed in Bosnia around 1,500 years ago. And this was not the only sphere connected to his theory. Osmanagic's research team claimed that several similar stone spheres had once existed throughout the region. However, most of them were reportedly destroyed during the 1970s after local residents spread rumors that gold or ancient treasure might be hidden inside. From that moment on, the name Samir Osmanagić once again became the center of major controversy in the international scientific community, because years before the discovery of the mysterious stone sphere, in 2005, Osmanagić had already shocked the world by claiming that the hills in Bosnia's Visoko Valley were actually gigantic ancient pyramids connected by underground tunnel systems buried deep beneath the earth. The announcement caused such a sensation that the Bosnian government eventually funded excavations in the Visoko area. At the time, Bosnian Prime Minister Nedjad Branković even stated, "We know the world is laughing at us, but no government would ignore something that could bring value to the country." However, the more famous Osmanagic's project became, the more criticism it received from the scientific community. Anthony Harding, then president of the European Association of Archaeologists, openly described the excavation project in Visoko as completely absurd. He argued that believing in the existence of 12,000-year-old structures buried beneath Bosnia was extremely unreasonable for anyone with basic knowledge of archaeology and history. According to Harding, the Visoko region may indeed contain remains from the Bronze Age or Roman period, but there was no credible evidence supporting the existence of an advanced super-ancient civilization like the one Osmanagić described. Then, in 2016, after the giant stone sphere was discovered, the debate exploded all over again. Many scientists quickly rejected the theory of a lost ancient civilization. Among them was Mandy Edwards, a scientist from the University of Manchester in England, who argued that the sphere was most likely a completely natural formation. According to Edwards, over millions of years, minerals can gradually accumulate and compress together, eventually forming spherical stone structures without any human involvement at all. Even today, however, the mystery surrounding the Bosnian stone sphere still has no universally accepted explanation. One side believes it is simply a rare geological phenomenon created by nature. The other side argues that its unusually balanced shape and high iron content may be the final surviving traces of a civilization erased by time itself. And perhaps that is exactly what makes this story so fascinating. Humanity has always been drawn to mysteries that cannot be fully explained. Deep in the silent forests near the town of Zavidovići in Bosnia, the giant stone sphere still rests there like a challenge to modern science, forcing people to wonder just how many ancient secrets may still remain buried beneath forests humanity has never fully explored. More than 10 female skeletons beneath the Blue Cave Lake reveal a brutal punishment in China. Hidden deep within the Miaozhou region of Guangdong Province, China, lies a small lake that local residents have whispered about for generations under a haunting name, the Drowning Blue Cave. At first glance, the place looks no different from a perfect diving destination surrounded by peaceful natural scenery. The water is so crystal clear that divers can see straight to the bottom, the temperature remains steady year-round at around 68 degrees Fahrenheit, and there are no dangerous underwater currents or whirlpools. Because of this, Blue Cave Lake once became a popular destination for professional divers in Guangdong, China. But few people could have imagined that beneath those calm waters was hidden one of the most horrifying secrets ever discovered beneath a lake in China. When archaeologists first began paying attention to the area after a shocking discovery made by diver Zhang Song, the situation quickly became far more than an ordinary exploration. While diving more than 49 feet below the surface, he suddenly spotted human skeletons scattered throughout the cold darkness underwater. But what terrified him most was that many of the remains were still tightly bound with iron chains. The discovery was immediately reported to local authorities, and Guangdong Province's Cultural Heritage Department quickly dispatched an archaeological team to investigate the site. After conducting a detailed underwater survey, archaeologists recovered more than 10 human skeletons. In addition, they discovered large compacted earth blocks that had once been used to anchor iron chains to the bottom of the lake. Research later revealed that all of the remains belonged to women and had been lying beneath the water for more than 100 years. These skeletons were not victims of accidents or natural disasters, as many people had once believed. According to elderly villagers, the lake had once served as a secret execution site for women accused of violating village rules. In ancient times, if a woman was suspected of being unfaithful or accused of bringing shame upon the community, she would be taken to Blue Cave Lake to face a horrifying punishment. But the most terrifying part was that the victims were not simply thrown into the water. First, they were locked inside large bamboo cages. Then, iron chains were used to secure the cages to compacted structures at the bottom of the lake before they were completely submerged underwater. In the freezing darkness beneath the deep lake, those women had almost no chance of escape. Beneath that mirror-like surface, countless desperate cries for help were swallowed by the night while no one dared to speak out against it. A place now considered a beautiful natural attraction was once an underwater hell for many innocent women. However, what disturbed researchers the most was not only the brutality of the executions, but also the nature of the punishment itself. You see, this was never an official sentence ordered by the imperial court or established by any formal legal system. It was a form of vigilante justice carried out by village leaders of that era, a system where community power stood above both the law and basic human compassion. Although such punishments were once believed to serve as a warning to others, they actually reveal a dark chapter of ancient society when human lives, especially the lives of women, could be taken away based on nothing more than vague accusations. Even today, Blue Cave Lake in Miaozhou, Guangdong, China, remains a place that fills people with both curiosity and fear. Beneath its peaceful waters lies not only the first submerged cave discovered in China with major geological research value, but also a silent witness to a brutal history buried for more than a century. And perhaps the most terrifying part of all is that those women vanished from the world in complete silence until the skeletons resting at the bottom of the lake accidentally revealed the full horrifying truth. You see, the ancient world truly was a terrifying place, wasn't it? The remains of two Roman infants, wrapped in rare, Tyrian purple cloth, shocked the United Kingdom. In the heart of the city of York in the United Kingdom, once one of the most important centers of the ancient Roman Empire, archaeologists uncovered a small tomb that forced historians to reconsider beliefs they had held for centuries. The grave did not contain gold treasures or the weapons of a Roman emperor. Instead, it held the remains of two infant children who had rested beneath the earth for nearly 1,700 years. But the truly mysterious detail was this: the two infants had been wrapped in cloth dyed with Tyrian purple, one of the most luxurious colors in the ancient world, so expensive that at times it was worth 3 times more than pure gold. Hearing this, many people naturally wonder, who were these two children to be buried in a material that only royalty could afford to use? Honestly, even archaeologists and scientists have been asking the same question. The excavation took place in York, England, once known as Eboracum during Roman rule. As experts expanded their investigation of the ancient cemetery there, they discovered the remains of the two infants buried with extraordinary care. Although nearly 2 millennia had passed, archaeologists were astonished by the chemical traces still preserved on fragments of fabric wrapped around the bodies. After extensive analysis, researchers confirmed that the dye was indeed the famous Tyrian purple, the rarest and most valuable dye in the ancient Mediterranean world. This was also the first time in history that evidence of Tyrian purple cloth had ever been discovered in York, United Kingdom. The discovery immediately challenged long-standing assumptions held by many historians. Before this, most scholars believed that ancient Romans did not openly express deep grief over the deaths of infants. In fact, Roman society often considered it inappropriate for parents to publicly mourn children who died young. Yet the burial of these two infants tells an entirely different story. The children were not buried hastily or carelessly. On the contrary, their bodies were wrapped in the finest fabric their family could possibly obtain, almost like a farewell ceremony filled with sorrow and respect. This strongly suggests that the children's family was not only extremely wealthy, but also genuinely devastated by the loss of their children. What makes the discovery even more fascinating is that Roman burial techniques help preserve traces of the fabric for thousands of years. At the time, Romans often poured plaster over bodies that had already been wrapped in cloth before burial. Once the plaster hardened, it unintentionally sealed in the chemical signatures of the dye, along with tiny remnants of the fabric itself. Thanks to this process, modern scientists were able to identify the presence of Tyrian purple on the infants' burial shrouds. And when it comes to Tyrian purple, this was far more than just an ordinary color. According to Greek mythology, the color was first discovered by Hercules. Legend says that Hercules' dog once bit into a sea snail along the shoreline, and its mouth suddenly turned a brilliant shade of purple. A goddess who saw the unusual color demanded that cloth be created in the same shade, and thus Tyrian purple was born. Historical records, however, suggest that Tyrian purple dye first began production in the Phoenician city of Tyre, located in present-day Lebanon, around the 16th century BC. To create this symbol of power, ancient people had to collect thousands of sea snails. They would then crush them or extract the tiny mucus glands inside the snails' bodies before salting, fermenting, and continuously boiling the mixture for about 10 days to produce the final purple dye. Just hearing the process alone makes it easy to understand why Tyrian purple was unimaginably expensive. Ancient golden mask reveals the secret of a lost kingdom in Tibet. Did you know that deep within China's Qinghai Tibet Plateau, often called the roof of the world, there exists a frozen and desolate region so harsh that many people can hardly believe humans were ever able to live there? That place is Ngari, a remote area in western Tibet where the average elevation rises above 13,000 feet above sea level. The air is dangerously thin, icy winds blow year-round, the land is barren, and the population is extremely sparse. For many people, standing in that environment for just a few hours is enough to cause exhaustion from lack of oxygen. And yet, thousands of years ago, on this seemingly uninhabitable land, an ancient civilization once flourished and built a mysterious kingdom known as Zhangzhung. What makes the story even stranger is that despite once controlling a vast territory and strongly influencing surrounding regions, the kingdom of Zhangzhung was eventually absorbed into Tibet and disappeared completely from history. Over time, the kingdom faded into obscurity and survived only in a handful of ancient legends. That was until a strange accident occurred in the Ngari region. an accident that unexpectedly opened the door to a secret buried for thousands of years. The incident took place near Jia Monastery, an ancient temple standing alone in the cold, barren plateau. On that day, a cargo truck was driving past the monastery gate when one of its rear wheels suddenly sank deep into the ground. Within seconds, the earth collapsed, creating a massive sinkhole, large enough to swallow nearly half the truck. The monks from Jia Monastery immediately rushed outside to help rescue the driver, but when they looked down into the newly formed pit, everyone froze in shock. Beneath the collapsed earth and rocks was not a natural cave, but the remains of an ancient structure that had been buried for centuries. The discovery was quickly reported to Chinese archaeologists. Not long afterward, experts arrived in Ngari to begin an emergency excavation. Fearing that the artifacts underground could be damaged because of the difficult terrain, the archaeological team even asked the monks of Jia Monastery to assist with the excavation by carefully digging by hand. Then, one by one, ancient artifacts began emerging from beneath layers of dust and time. One of the most astonishing discoveries was an incredibly delicate piece of silk. Even after being buried for thousands of years, the fabric still displayed visible animal patterns and ancient symbols on its surface. Some experts believe it may have been a product of an ancient Tibetan silk weaving tradition, suggesting that the craftsmanship of the Zhongjung Kingdom was far more advanced than previously believed. But the discoveries did not stop there. While continuing to excavate the ancient tomb, archaeologists suddenly uncovered a shimmering golden mask lying beside a human body. The mask had been crafted from thin sheets of gold and featured an astonishingly intricate design with remarkably fine details. From that moment, experts quickly realized this was no ordinary artifact. In many ancient nomadic cultures throughout Xinjiang and Central Asia, golden masks were often used to cover the faces of the dead during burial rituals reserved for powerful elites. Objects like these were typically found only in the tombs of tribal leaders or kings. That means the owner of the underground tomb in Ngari may have been an extremely important figure within the kingdom of Zhongjung, perhaps even the ruler of the entire kingdom. 50 Viking skeletons, still perfectly preserved, after 1,000 years, shock Denmark. During an archaeological excavation at an ancient burial site covering more than 21,500 square feet in the peaceful countryside of Asum, near the city of Odense in Denmark, a place now surrounded only by wide-open fields and quiet rural roads, archaeologist Michael Borre-Lundo and his research team uncovered as many as 50 Viking skeletons preserved in astonishing condition. For European archaeologists, this is considered an exceptionally rare discovery because Viking-era remains are usually very difficult to preserve due to the harsh soil and weather conditions of Northern Europe. But in Asum, Denmark, everything turned out to be completely different. As layer after layer of earth was carefully removed, experts gradually realized they were not simply excavating an ordinary cemetery, but possibly an entire ancient Viking community that had once lived there more than 1,100 years ago. What made the excavation truly remarkable was the incredible state of preservation of the skeletons. Many of the remains were still almost completely intact, resting in ancient burial positions alongside a wide range of valuable grave goods. Beside the skeletons, the archaeological team discovered iron knives, jewelry, glass beads, and even crystal pieces buried with the dead. These artifacts reveal that the Vikings were not merely brutal warriors as they are often portrayed in movies, but a people with a highly developed culture, belief system, and craftsmanship. According to initial analysis, the entire burial site dates back to the 9th century AD, during the period when Denmark was ruled by Gorm and Thyra at Jelling, figures widely regarded as the first rulers to lay the foundations of the Kingdom of Denmark. The people who once lived during the Viking Age were now appearing before archaeologists almost exactly as they had been buried more than 1,000 years ago. Each skeleton seemed like a doorway through time, transporting modern humanity back to an era when Viking longships dominated northern Europe. But among the dozens of graves uncovered, one burial in particular captured the attention of every expert at the site. It was the remains of a Viking woman buried alongside an entire horse-drawn wagon. The moment archaeologists uncovered this grave, they immediately understood that the woman had certainly not been an ordinary person, Surrounding her skeleton were numerous valuable artifacts, ranging from finely crafted glass bead necklaces to an elaborately forged iron sword. In ancient Viking society, being buried with a wagon was a burial honor reserved only for individuals of extremely high status. This suggests that the woman may have belonged to a powerful family, been a noblewoman, or perhaps held a special role within the Viking community of her time. The discovery has also forced many researchers to reconsider the role of women in Viking society. Until now, the Viking image has almost always been associated with fierce male warriors. But this extraordinary grave suggests that Viking women may also have held significant power and social status within their communities. According to archaeologist Michael Borre-Lundo, the entire excavation site now resembles a living archive for modern archaeology. He explained that skeletons preserved this well provide an incredibly valuable opportunity for future in-depth studies. Because of this, his research team is currently planning to conduct DNA analysis on all 50 Viking skeletons discovered in Assam. Their goal is not only to identify the individuals or determine their origins, but also to better understand the social structure of ancient Viking society, how these people were related to one another, where they migrated from, how they lived, and whether this community had connections to famous Viking groups known throughout Europe. Through modern DNA technology, experts hope to reconstruct the life stories of people who died more than 1,000 years ago. And perhaps the most fascinating part is this: every skeleton beneath that Danish soil is not simply a cold archaeological artifact, but the remains of a real human being. These people once lived, fought, loved, and existed during the height of Viking civilization. Now, after more than 1,000 years of silence beneath the cold earth of Denmark, those skeletons are finally beginning to tell the stories that history once forgot. Do you find that fascinating? Or do you have your own thoughts about these 50 Viking skeletons? If so, don't hesitate to leave your opinion in the comments below. The Roman Empire's death well and the 7 skeletons thrown to the bottom for 1,700 years. In the city of Osijek in eastern Croatia, there was an ancient well that had remained buried and forgotten for nearly 2 millennia. From the outside, it looked no different from any ordinary ruin left behind from the days of ancient Rome. But no one could have imagined that beneath the darkness at the bottom of that well lay a bloody and violent secret of the Roman Empire. This story came to light in 2011 when archaeologists began excavating the area before the construction of a new university in Osijek. During the dig, they unexpectedly uncovered an ancient well hidden deep underground. In Roman times, this area was known as Mursa, an extremely important military settlement located near the empire's frontier. At first, experts believed it was simply another ancient water structure like many Roman wells previously discovered across Europe. But as they dug deeper toward the bottom, the atmosphere at the site grew increasingly tense. Then came the horrifying discovery. Beneath the cold layers of mud and soil were human skeletons piled on top of one another in the darkness. In total, 7 adult male skeletons were discovered at the bottom of the well. What made the scene especially disturbing was that the bodies had not been buried according to any traditional ritual. Instead, they had been thrown in carelessly in chaotic positions. Some skeletons were lying on their sides, while others were face down with their heads pointed directly toward the bottom of the well, as if they had been violently tossed in without mercy. For nearly 1,700 years, the well had remained a hidden mass grave unknown to the world. According to Mario Novak, a bioarchaeologist at the Institute for Anthropological Research in Zagreb, Croatia, and the lead author of the study, all of the men appeared to have been stripped of every valuable possession before being thrown into the well. There were no weapons, no armor, no jewelry, and nothing that could help identify them. This strongly suggested that the site was far more than a normal burial. After detailed analysis, researchers confirmed that all 7 skeletons belonged to adult men. 4 of them were relatively young, while the other 3 were middle-aged. But what truly sent chills through the experts was the evidence of injuries found on their bodies. Some of the skeletons showed signs of severe blunt force trauma to the head. Several individuals had broken ribs, while others still bore marks consistent with wounds caused by sharp weapons. In other words, these men had most likely endured a brutal battle before their deaths. Not only that, but scientists also discovered evidence suggesting that several of them had suffered from respiratory infections shortly before they died. This reflects the extremely harsh living conditions faced by Roman soldiers during the wars and chaos of the 3rd century. To determine the exact time period, experts used carbon dating on 4 of the skeletons. The results showed that the men lived during the second half of the 3rd century AD. What makes this especially remarkable is that the dating perfectly matches the only artifact discovered at the bottom of the well, a Roman coin minted in 251 AD. Based on the archaeological evidence and the geographic location of the town of Mursa, researchers eventually reached a chilling conclusion. The 7 skeletons were most likely Roman soldiers who had fought in the Battle of Mursa in 260 AD. This was a bloody civil war between Emperor Gallienus and the Roman general Ingenuus, who had rebelled in an attempt to seize the throne of the Roman Empire but ultimately failed. According to ancient historical records, after his victory, Emperor Gallienus brutally punished those who had supported Ingenuus. He reportedly showed almost no mercy to the defeated. That is why researchers believe the 7 skeletons at the bottom of the well may have belonged to soldiers loyal to Ingenuus. After losing the battle, they were stripped of their possessions, killed or left to die, and then thrown into the well as a cold and calculated way to dispose of their bodies. Today, that ancient well is no longer just an underground structure. It has become a silent piece of evidence from one of the most chaotic and blood-soaked periods of the Roman Empire, a time when defeated soldiers could be erased from history in the cruelest possible way, left forever at the bottom of a dark well for nearly 17 centuries. Just thinking about it is enough to send chills down your spine, isn't it? Down your spine. The moon goddess, coined beneath the Sea of Israel, reveals an 1,850-year-old mystery connected to the Roman Empire. Off the coast of Israel, where the waves of the Mediterranean Sea crash endlessly against ancient rocky shores, countless secrets of history have remained hidden beneath the ocean floor for thousands of years, unknown to humanity. And sometimes, all it takes is a single accidental moment during an underwater survey for a lost piece of the past to suddenly reappear before our eyes. During a maritime survey along the coast of Israel, conducted by the Israel Antiquities Authority, ancient coin specialist Lior Sandberg discovered a strange object buried among sand and rocks beneath the sea. At first glance, it looked no different from a corroded piece of metal worn down by centuries of seawater. But once it was carefully recovered and cleaned, what appeared before the experts astonished the entire archaeological community. It was an ancient bronze coin estimated to be around 1,850 years old. What made the discovery extraordinary was the image engraved on the surface of the coin. Despite the metal being stained by time, experts could still clearly see the figure of Luna, the famous moon goddess from ancient Roman mythology, along with the zodiac symbol Cancer, both carved with remarkable detail. From that very moment, researchers understood this was no ordinary coin. According to Roman mythology, Luna was the goddess who represented the moon and the night sky. She was often depicted wearing a crescent-shaped crown while riding a chariot across the heavens to bring moonlight to the world below. For centuries, Luna's image was associated with divine power, the cycles of time, and the spiritual beliefs of ancient Rome. That is why the appearance of this goddess on an ancient coin discovered beneath the sea off Israel immediately drew intense attention from archaeologists. After conducting detailed analysis using archaeological and ancient numismatic techniques, experts determined that the coin had been minted during the reign of Roman Emperor Antoninus Pius, who ruled the Roman Empire from 138 AD to 161 AD. Historians consider this period one of the most stable and prosperous eras of ancient Rome. During this time, the empire's trade network stretched across the Mediterranean, connecting territories from Europe and North Africa to the Middle East. And this tiny coin may serve as vivid evidence of those commercial connections. Nearly 2,000 years ago, Roman ships loaded with goods may once have docked along the shores of ancient Israel. Merchants traveling across the Mediterranean likely used coins exactly like this one to trade goods, purchase food, textiles, and valuable handcrafted items. Then somehow, this particular coin fell into the sea and remained buried beneath the sand for nearly 2 millennia. But what truly makes this discovery so special is not simply its age of 1,850 years, but the extremely rare imagery engraved on its surface. A coin featuring the goddess Luna combined with the zodiac sign, Cancer is not a design commonly found in ordinary archaeological discoveries. It reflects how the ancient Romans blended mythology with astronomy and astrology in everyday life, even placing those symbols onto currency circulated throughout the empire. According to experts from the Israel Antiquities Authority, the discovery is like a message from the past, reminding modern humanity of the important role trade played between the Roman Empire and ancient Israel. 4,500-year-old treasure in Troy. A shocking discovery reveals secrets of the ancient world. In the ancient lands of northwestern Turkey, a place long tied to some of humanity's most famous legends, there stands a mythical city that for thousands of years many believed existed only in epic poems and mythology. That city is Troy, the legendary site of the famous Trojan War in Greek mythology, where ancient warriors were said to have fought over the beauty of the renowned Helen of Troy. But the deeper archaeologists dig beneath the soil of Troy, the more they realize that this place was far more than just a legend. And recently, at the site of Troy in Turkey, the archaeological world was once again stunned when a rare treasure, more than 4,500 years old, was unexpectedly uncovered beneath layers of ancient earth. According to archaeologists involved in the excavation project, this is considered one of the most important archaeological discoveries made at the legendary city of Troy in the past century. Among the artifacts recently uncovered, the object that captured the attention of researchers around the world was a golden brooch that remained almost perfectly intact despite having rested underground for thousands of years. Experts determined that the ancient brooch dates back approximately 4,500 years to the early Bronze Age, around 2,500 BC. Just imagine it for a moment. A golden object crafted by human hands nearly 5,000 years ago, surviving countless wars, natural disasters, and the collapse of entire civilizations. And yet today it still remains almost perfectly preserved beneath the soil of Troy. What does that tell us? As soon as the artifact was cleaned, experts were astonished by the extraordinary craftsmanship of the ancient people who created it. The brooch, also described as a ring-shaped pin, was once used as a practical object to fasten clothing. But more importantly, it also symbolized power, status, and social prestige in the ancient world. In other words, the owner of this object may once have been an extremely important figure in early Troy society. The discoveries did not stop with the precious golden brooch. The archaeological team also uncovered a jade stone and an ancient bronze pin. Both artifacts date back to the early Bronze Age, further strengthening the enormous historical significance of the excavation site. But what makes this discovery even more extraordinary is the exact location where the golden brooch was found. According to experts, the treasure was discovered within the archaeological layer known as Troy II, an ancient settlement phase at Troy whose exact dating has been debated by archaeologists for decades. Previously, many scholars believed the Troy II layer began sometime between 2300 and 2200 BC. However, other researchers argued that the civilization there may have emerged much earlier. Now, this 4,500-year-old golden brooch acts almost like a living timestamp, helping resolve that long-running debate. Archaeological analysis indicates that the Troy II layer truly dates back to around 2500 BC, significantly earlier than many previous theories suggested. This not only helps redefine the timeline of ancient Troy itself, but also provides an extremely important reference point for studying the entire Bronze Age period throughout Asia Minor and the ancient Mediterranean world. Even Mehmet Nuri Ersoy, Turkey's Minister of Culture and Tourism, described the find as one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the past 100 years. All of the artifacts were uncovered as part of the Heritage for the Future project, launched by Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism to preserve and study the nation's most significant ancient heritage sites. Have you noticed something? What makes discoveries like this truly fascinating is not simply the gold, wealth, or rarity of the artifacts themselves. What is truly astonishing is that every object uncovered beneath the earth is like a surviving fragment of memory from an ancient civilization. The secret tunnel beneath the Roman Colosseum. Emperor Commodus's 2,000-year-old passageway has finally been opened. Beneath the massive Roman Colosseum in the city of Rome, Italy, a place that once witnessed thousands of bloody battles fought by ancient gladiators, there exists a secret passageway that, For nearly 2,000 years, only the most powerful figures of the Roman Empire were allowed to enter. It was not a hidden treasure chamber or a secret prison as many might imagine, but an incredibly sophisticated ancient tunnel built to allow the Roman emperor to move directly into the royal section inside the arena without ever appearing before the massive crowds outside. And remarkably, after being buried underground for nearly 2 millennia, this secret tunnel has finally been restored almost completely intact and officially opened to the public. The tunnel is known as the Passage of Commodus. It stretches approximately 180 feet beneath the Colosseum and was constructed exclusively for the emperor and special guests, allowing them to enter the royal seating area directly without passing through the crowds outside the arena. The passage was named after Emperor Commodus, the ruler who governed the Roman Empire from 177 AD to 192 AD. When it comes to Commodus, many historians consider him one of the strangest emperors in Roman history. Unlike rulers who simply sat upon the throne and observed from a distance, Commodus was obsessed with the image of the gladiator. He frequently entered the arena himself to participate in staged battles against gladiators and wild animals in order to display his power. What makes the story even more remarkable is that this very emperor was once nearly assassinated inside the secret tunnel that now bears his name. According to archaeologists, the Passage of Commodus was constructed not long after the completion of the Roman Colosseum itself. The enormous structure was built in Rome, Italy between 72 AD and 80 AD, during the reigns of Emperor Vespasian and his successor Titus. Meanwhile, the secret tunnel is believed to have been added sometime in the late 1st century or early 2nd century AD. To this day, researchers still have not determined the exact original starting point of the passage. However, they know with certainty that the tunnel led directly to a private chamber inside the Colosseum, the place where Roman emperors sat while watching gladiatorial death matches, wild animal hunts, and violent spectacles that once shook ancient Rome. What astonishes archaeologists most is the sophistication of the tunnel's design. The Passage of Commodus was built in an S-shaped layout, helping conceal visibility while also increasing protection for the emperor during movement. The walls on both sides were once decorated with luxurious marble and intricate frescoes. During previous excavations near the internal entrance to the arena, archaeologists also uncovered artwork depicting wild boar hunts, battles involving savage beasts, and performances that once took place inside the Roman Colosseum. In other words, the walls of this tunnel witnessed both the bloodiest and most glorious periods of the Roman Empire. In fact, the secret tunnel was first discovered by French archaeologists in the early 19th century, but for many decades afterward, much of the structure remained in severe deterioration due to dirt, humidity, and the destruction caused by time. Only recently did Italian experts begin a massive restoration project aimed at recovering nearly the entire ancient structure. During the restoration, specialists removed centuries of accumulated dust, reinforced the ancient mortar using modern laser technology, and revealed marble wall sections carved with astonishing detail. The restoration project has now been completed, and today visitors can finally walk through the very same tunnel used by Roman emperors nearly 2,000 years ago. So if you ever have the opportunity, you should definitely visit this place to experience the mystery of this ancient tunnel with your own eyes. 200-million-year-old dinosaur fossils discovered in Ireland. Along the cold coastline of County Antrim in Northern Ireland, where the waves of the Atlantic Ocean crash endlessly against dark rocky cliffs, an ancient secret lay hidden beneath layers of stone for nearly 200 million years. That secret was first discovered in the 1980s when fossil collector Roger Byrne was walking along the eastern coast of County Antrim in Northern Ireland and unexpectedly came across several strange bone fragments embedded within the ancient coastal rock formations. At first, they looked no different from the ordinary fossilized stones commonly found throughout the region. But from his experience, Byrne sensed that there was something very unusual about the bones. Because of that, he preserved the specimens for many years before eventually donating them to the Ulster Museum in the city of Belfast, Northern Ireland. However, for decades, the ancient bone fragments remained stored quietly in the museum archives, with no one truly knowing which creature they belonged to. It was only recently, when scientists decided to conduct an in-depth study using modern technology, that the decades-long mystery was finally solved. The results astonished the entire paleontology community. Experts from University of Portsmouth and Queen's University Belfast confirmed that these specimens were the first dinosaur fossils ever discovered in Ireland. According to Mike Sims, lead researcher and paleontologist at the National Museum's Northern Ireland, most rock layers in Ireland are not from the correct geological period to preserve dinosaur bones. Because of this, discovering dinosaur fossils there is considered extraordinarily rare. That is why the County Antrim discovery is regarded as a major breakthrough in the history of Irish paleontological research. But what makes the discovery even more fascinating is that after using high-resolution 3D fossil scanning technology, researchers found that the specimens belonged not to one, but to two completely different dinosaur species. One of them was a heavily armored plant-eating dinosaur with an incredibly strong body. Its bones were thick and durable, functioning like natural armor against predators. The other species was completely different, a fast-moving predator that walked on two legs, with a slender and highly flexible skeleton belonging to the famous theropod group of dinosaurs. After further analysis, experts identified the four-legged herbivore as belonging to the genus Scelidosaurus, while the two-legged predator was identified as Sarcosaurus. This means that around 200 million years ago, the land that is now Ireland was once home to both plant-eating dinosaurs and fierce predators. But the discoveries did not stop there. Scientists uncovered another extremely intriguing detail. Another Scelidosaurus fossil found within marine geological layers led many experts to believe that this armored dinosaur may once have lived near coastlines or ancient seas. Some theories even suggest that it may have fed on seaweed, similar to modern marine iguanas. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? A giant armored dinosaur wandering near the shoreline and feeding on seaweed hundreds of millions of years ago on the ancient land of Ireland. This discovery not only expands scientific understanding of early dinosaur life, but also offers a new perspective on the ancient marine ecosystem of Northern Ireland. Perhaps the most astonishing part is that these bone fragments survived nearly 200 million years despite exposure to seawater, freezing winds, and the Earth's dramatic geological transformations. The Mongol warship, sunk by the divine wind, beneath the Sea of Japan. Recently, in a bay near the city of Matsuura on the western coast of Kyushu Island in Japan, divers discovered the wreck of an ancient Mongol warship believed to have taken part in Kublai Khan's invasion of Japan around 730 years ago. The moment the news was announced, the worlds of archaeology and history were immediately shaken. This shipwreck is not simply an ordinary ancient vessel. It may be part of the remains of the massive fleet that once plunged all of Japan into fear during the 13th century. But to truly understand the significance of this discovery, we must return to the height of the Mongol Empire's power. In the 13th century, Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan and founder of the Yuan dynasty in China, built an enormous empire stretching across Asia. But his ambitions did not stop on land. Japan soon became his next target. According to historical records, Kublai Khan launched two massive military expeditions to invade Japan in 1274 and again in 1281. At the time, he reportedly mobilized around 4,000 warships and approximately 140,000 soldiers to cross the sea toward Japan. It was considered one of the largest military fleets in the medieval world. But strangely, despite commanding such overwhelming forces, both invasions failed in an incredibly mysterious way. According to Japanese historical accounts, during both campaigns, the Mongol fleets were struck by devastating storms at sea. Massive waves and violent winds sank thousands of warships within a short period of time. The Japanese believed the gods had protected their nation through these sacred storms, and they called the phenomenon divine wind, better known throughout history as kamikaze. And now, after more than 7 centuries resting beneath the Sea of Japan, part of that legendary fleet has finally emerged. According to the research team, the newly discovered shipwreck lies in a bay near the city of Matsuura in Nagasaki Prefecture on Japan's Kyushu Island. The wreck measures approximately 66 feet long and about 23 feet wide. Based on the ship's design and the artifacts found nearby, experts believe this vessel belonged to the Mongol fleet that participated in the invasion of Japan during the 13th century. What surprised archaeologists most is how remarkably well preserved the wreck remains, despite having rested beneath the ocean for around 730 years. Around the ship, divers also discovered several pieces of 13th century pottery, including a white jar and a white bowl scattered beneath the seabed sand. According to Atsuyuki Nakata, a cultural affairs official from the city of Matsura, the discovery is extremely valuable because it helps researchers better understand ancient Mongol shipbuilding technology. Experts now hope to closely analyze the ship's hull to determine what materials the Mongols used more than 700 years ago, as well as how they constructed warships capable of crossing the sea on such a massive scale. What is especially noteworthy is that this is not the first ship from the Mongol invasion fleet to be discovered. According to archaeologists, this is the third Mongol warship found beneath the waters surrounding Japan. But the more wrecks that are uncovered, the more haunting the mystery of the Divine Wind Fleet becomes. Historians believe that off the coast of Japan today, there may still be hundreds, perhaps even thousands, of additional shipwrecks resting deep beneath the sea. These were ships that once carried soldiers, weapons, and the ambition to conquer an entire nation. As you can see, from the Mongol warships resting deep beneath the Sea of Japan, to the secret tunnels hidden beneath ancient Rome, and the priceless treasures unearthed in the legendary city of Troy, all of these discoveries prove that human history still holds countless secrets buried beneath the earth and the oceans. Perhaps somewhere in the world, even at this very moment, there are still lost civilizations waiting to be found, ancient tombs that have never been opened, and artifacts powerful enough to completely change humanity's understanding of the past. So what about you? Which discovery do you think is the most astonishing? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any future videos from the Ancient History channel. And for now, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.